Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of Villa Park City Council. I hereby call the meeting to order. Steve, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Miles,
Present.
Councilwoman Jones,
Here.
Councilman McBride, Mayor Pro Tem Frackleton,
Here.
Mayor Wu,
Here.
all present.
Today, I would like to ask Cecile to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you all could please rise and put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we continue, I want to take a moment of silence, if I may. Since our last council meeting, Villa Park had lost 4 super involved residents. Each lady has contributed to the culture and tradition of our hidden jewel city. I would like to honor them with, as I mentioned earlier, moment of silence. Allow me to read their names. Please excuse me if I pronounce their name incorrectly or just mispronounced. Please forgive me on that. Jean Abdallah, Elise Everett, Elsie. Thank you. See, I told you. Elsie Everett, Jill Kulai, and Julia Peterson. If we could bow our head for a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you so much. This 4 lady had done a lot for our city, so there's proper respect for them. The Villa Park City Council and staff welcome you to this meeting, and we encourage your participation. If you wish to address the City Council, please complete and submit a speaker card to the City Clerk. Speaker cards can be found at the entrance to the City Council chambers. Speakers will be called up individually during the public comments section of the meeting, or during the items they wish to speak on. Once the public comment period has concluded for an item, no additional speakers will be taken. Speakers will be limited to a time period of 5 minutes. Speakers were also able to submit comments in writing by 3 p.m. today. Those comments will be placed in the official record. Today I have asked Villa Park Women's League President to present us what the good the organization had done for our local community.
Good evening, and thank you, City Council, for inviting me to represent the Villa Park Women's League as the 57th president to share our rich history and why we still remain relevant today. We are a 501c4 social welfare organization. Our purpose of formation states to promote, encourage, foster, and cultivate activities and plans that will unite women in the furtherance of the civic and social welfare of Villa Park and surrounding communities, and to promote civic pride and cohesiveness among the citizens of Villa Park, encourage and support culture enrichment, safety, beautification, education, library, historical, recreational, and other similar programs within Villa Park and surrounding communities. In the early years of this city, a group of tenacious and hardworking Villa Park women discovered that the city builders were singularly focused on building up the smallest city in Orange County. However, no money had been allocated to beautify Villa Park streets. Using their own money to create boutique items for sale, these women came together and raised enough money to buy the city-approved trees and plants and rent a power digger for the holes. Everyone pitched in on designated workdays to plant many of the trees and bushes you still see around today. As desires grew for more social outlets in this growing city, 27 charter members in 1969 formed the Villa Park Women's League, and our first general meeting was held at Sarah Villa Auditorium on September 30th, 1969. Although COVID impacted our membership numbers, the last several years have seen a steady return as we retell our unique story, remind those who left the value of membership, and introduce newer residents through word of mouth, social media, targeted postcards, and Villa Park the Magazine provides a dedicated space, a page for us to share our special attributes and activities. Today, our 277 members include women in our 20s to our seasoned 90s, moms with infants and toddlers, pre-K and elementary, all the way to graduating seniors, part-time and full-time career women, small business owners, professionals, empty nesters, retirees, single, married, and widowed. We are from all ages and stages of life. However, we are all knitted together by our shared sense of place. We all reside in Villa Park or have once resided. From this shared zip code jumping off point, our activity groups, currently numbering around 20 and always encouraging more to form, provide daytime and evening activities for members as family, work, and leisure travel schedules allow. Alongside our activity groups, our league has always dedicated resources to community affairs, raising funds from our fashion shows, theme fundraisers, home and garden tours, community initiatives, and giving campaigns, just to name a few over the decades. This is just a sampling of our most recent community projects. Although we are not a charity nor require any time or service commitments, many members have volunteered for these projects, even though we already participate in other organizations, school and sports activities, and other philanthropic pursuits. We have a dedicated community support chair every year who works with other VP-based nonprofits and VP schools in furtherance of our originating purpose. Our current chair, Pam Dunn, has led the charge this past year in replacing the City Hall planters you passed to walk into these chambers tonight. We are also an active participant in the USA 250 celebration with members to paint several designated fire hydrants with city-approved patriotic designs. We will be planting a Liberty Tree right outside City Hall and facilitating the inaugural Patriotic Display Awards, similar to our annual Holiday Decor Awards in the ramp-up to America's 250th birthday. We are also starting our new member drive on May 1st. We invite and re-invite female residents, those who joined over the last 56 years but have left. So I'm inviting you back, Crystal, and also Shamim, and those who live in Villa Park and have never joined, to give Villa Park Women's League a try or another try. You can be our guest at an activity group or come to our June 6th board installation of New Officers Tea Party to be held nearby in Orange. Or just jump right in at vpwl.org. For just $75 annual dues, you will be paid through June 30th, 2027, essentially 14 months for 12. There's 4 all-inclusive general meeting hosting relevant programs and speakers, 1 installation party, and access to all of our great activity groups. Even if it's just to be included in our exclusive monthly member newsletter, The Villa Voice, and listed in our annual physical roster, it is worth it to be informed and connected, because knowing your female neighbors beyond specific affiliations makes our Villa Park community that much more special. Let's keep this group thriving into the next 50 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that detailed report and also name call out. I love it. That's a good salesperson right there. So if I could ask, since you have so many wonderful members here, if we could ask you all come up and take a photo with us so we can put it on the feeder.
I know, I was the first one to eat.
All right. Love it. If you guys stay, it will be awesome. So you can get to hear how good and how safe is our neighborhood. Please, OC Sheriff, Captain.
Good evening, City Council, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, I have the incident summary spanning from March 20th, 2026 to April 24th, 2026. There were 322 total reported incidents. That's up 15. 11 total reports taken, no crimes against persons, and 5 of those reports were crimes against property or society. No injury traffic accidents and 1 non-injury traffic accident. 44 moving citations and 37 parking citations, both up a bit from last time. The crimes against property and society summary, we did have some Amazon package thefts or porch pirates, as they're sometimes referred to. There was multiple residents involved with that one. There was a trailer theft, a theft of some tools from a residence, a stolen vehicle that was located within the city. It was actually a LA case, the vehicle stolen from LA and located here, and some vandalism to a vehicle. Other reports that were taken were also a violation restraining order, a warrant arrest, which was actually a pedestrian check. One of our deputies, being proactive, stopped a suspicious subject, and it turns out he had a warrant and arrested him, and a driving under the influence. And just, I wanted to state a little reminder for the residents of Villa Park: if you see suspicious people or vehicles around, it's great to get a picture or a good description where it's safe, but try to call dispatch as quickly as you can. That allows our deputies to get there and catch the people in the act, which greatly helps our investigations, rather than trying to find them, leaving the city or headed towards another city or the freeway or something like that. So just a little general reminder. Questions?
Questions? Go ahead.
Thank you for the report. I was wondering, the comment about calling the dispatch if you see something. Well, does that also include e-bikes? So this past 2 weekends, it seems like they're out in full force, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them again, riding in the middle of the street, doing wheelies. Now, I don't know if they're all from here or not from here or neighboring, but we even witnessed, my husband and I, one at the corner of Taft and Santiago, this Santiago here. And they were turning left. There were 2 girls in their like pajama bottoms on, it wasn't an e-bike, it was like the modified e-bike, and she had a couple other girls with her, and she wasn't tripping the left turn thing, so she was directing the car that was probably paranoid on what to do behind her to scoot up so that the car could trigger it. Yeah. And it turned out to be just a real cluster. So I don't know, does that include, or are you seeing an increase? Because I definitely am.
I haven't heard from my deputies that there's been any kind of apparent increase, but of course it takes people to report that typically. And
do you want them to call
call
non-emergency?
Non-emergency
Okay.
dispatch. Yeah, and it helps if you if the person who's calling explains the acts that they're doing. It's not so much you just say, oh, there's e-bikers on the street or whatever. If they're causing a disturbance, or if they're tearing up something like a lawn or something like that, that could potentially be a crime. It could be vandalism, or just unsafe acts in the middle of the street, causing potential traffic collisions, things like that. Specifying what they're doing really helps with those reports.
Yeah, it's, I really want to get ahead of this, because especially with what happened with the new case that was just filed against the young man. But if you could also mention to your deputies, kind of, because it seems like the weekends, they're really out.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Captain, I had emailed our city manager, and I know he forwarded to you, and I saw your response to the resident. And their claim was that a suspicious vehicle parked, someone got out, and they were flying a drone. They came back in, they got back on the car and left, and it was a street where it was a cul-de-sac, so you wouldn't be driving through. Is that a thing? Do people case homes using drones? Is that a bad
Yeah,
guys?
that absolutely could be the case yeah,
Or could it be a real estate agent who's getting a new listing?
and that's the hard part, and that's what we would investigate either way. So if we get calls like that as fast as somebody can make the call, again, if they could snap a picture or something like that, that is helpful. But I don't want anybody to put themselves in a position where they could potentially be unsafe. So if they feel unsafe doing that, just call in to the non-emergency line to dispatch as fast as possible. That allows that time for our deputies to get there, and then they could stop the vehicle based on the call. And if it is just a real estate agent or they're contracted to do that, that's fine. They'll release them. But sometimes some of those cases evolve into something a lot bigger. So yeah, definitely call about that. And it like I said, it helps our deputies. The faster you can call, because I know to get through the phone tree sometimes with non-emergency dispatch, it could take a minute or so. So the faster that somebody makes that call, the faster our deputies could get there.
Would you mind saying the non-emergency number for the residents that don't know it?
It's 714-647-7000.
So just to clarify, it's a complex subject, but we now have numerous e-bikes and young adolescents riding their e-bikes in, let's call it a posse. I've seen as many as 12 on Valley Drive. Exactly what behavior would trigger a call to dispatch? We see them frequently on their seat, wheel in the air, and this particular group had 4 of them at once, all doing their little wheelie stands. I mean, what should residents use as a guideline?
So those are unsafe acts in the street typically, or they could be violations of the California Vehicle Code. So if we can get deputies there quickly and observe these acts, then we could potentially write them citations for that. But it kind of has to be observed for that. So again, going back, I'll notify the deputies to kind of be on the lookout and increase the enforcement related to those. But also, it's not only CVC violations; it also could be penal code violations as far as vandalism or some sort of disturbance or whatever they may be doing. Ultimately, it comes down to safety, right? We just want to make sure that the drivers on the road and the kids on the e-bikes are all safe. And again, if the deputies are there to observe it, they could either cite or they could educate them, and it's would be very beneficial if the deputies were there as quickly as possible.
I know some of the residents open their window and tell them to be safe. I don't know if that's recommended or if we should just make the dispatch call, which I, again, have mixed feelings about, boys will be boys type thing.
Yeah, and the calls to dispatch, even though maybe the e-bikers are gone by then, the deputies could patrol check the area, and sometimes that's just a deterrent there if the e-bikers see them, and then they'll be on their best behavior. It also allows us to document the incidents, where we can kind of see where these calls are coming from, the most problematic areas, and then we could kind of concentrate our enforcement in those areas.
Okay.
So the calls are sometimes they're not pointless. They actually help us on the back end as far as like data-driven enforcement.
Yeah, I think we're all concerned for their safety, so.
Yeah,
thank you.
exactly.
All right, thank you so much.
All right.
Mayor, may I just, to Councilman McBride? So e-bikes are a scourge, right, in multiple cities. Every city's having problems with them. We do also have a section in our municipal code that we did about a year ago. So under our code, and the officers are authorized to write up infractions to kids or adults that are violating our laws. And there's about 10 or 15 different things they're supposed to follow. So that is another enforcement tool we have. I mean, often we do warnings, and hopefully that works. And it's more educational than anything else. That's the intent. We don't want to give a kid a record, even if it is, of an infraction type level. But some of these things have been pretty bad in other cities I work with. So it may have to go down that route. And those citations then get sent to Lamoureux, which is the Juvenile Justice Center, and they go through the process. Sometimes they're diverted where they have to do training or social work, but they learn a lesson. So there are options.
Thank you. Next up, OCFA Chief.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Since our last report, as of last month, we had 48 incidents within the city, 35 medical aids, 1 traffic accident, and other miscellaneous of 12 different type of calls, including odor checks, hazardous materials, auto alarms within the city of Villa Park. So as we move into the warmer months, we do take heed of people are starting to swim more, be in pools, community pools, backyard pools, oceans, and everything else that goes with the summer months in beautiful Southern California, right? We all love it here. We all love the sunshine. We all love being in the water, right? Everybody loves to be in the water when it's hot. So with that being said, as the temperatures rise in Southern California, we would like to remind you to practice water safety. Children and adults drown without a sound in a second. Drowning consistently remains the leading cause of death of children under the age of 5 and can happen in as little as 2 inches of water. So with that, we want to remind the public to mind their ABCs. And ABCs of drowning is active adult supervision. Keep infants, toddlers within arm's reach. No one should ever swim alone. That includes adults as well. Never rely on water wings, rafts, or other swimming aids in place of U.S. Coast Guard approved life vests for little ones. Assign an adult to be water watcher, actively keeping their eyes on the water without any distractions. No going to the restroom, no getting a second cocktail, no going up for a buffet for the second time, or being on your cell phone viewing social media. Actively watch the water. If a child or adult is missing, every second counts, and we need to check the water first before you check anywhere else. When it comes to B in the ABCs is barriers. Install barriers around your pool. Install child-proof gates that they can't get out. Install locks within your sliding doors, French doors, or anything that leads out to the pool. Ensure that those children cannot get outside without adult aware of it. Alarms on your doors, just the chimes that come in and out will alert you to someone going out your door, right? It could be an adult, but it very well could be a child that walks out that door while adults are inside talking, and that child walks out, and now he or she is in the water, and now we have a drowning. Remove any such items as chairs and tables that a child could use to climb over a fence as well. Remove that. Children are notorious for climbing. My little ones climbed like there's no tomorrow. So I know that they'll climb anything to get where they want to be. They had fun in the water for the day. You pull them out, they want to go back in the water. They're going to want to go back in the water all day long, and that's just how children are. For C is for classes. Take swim lessons. Enroll your children in any type of swim lessons. Learn first aid and CPR, and always keep a phone nearby, which in today's society is not much of a problem since everybody has a phone glued to them pretty much 24/7. But have that phone with you, be able to dial 911 to get a response out there. Teach children that running, jumping, and pushing others in the pool deck is dangerous and can cause severe injuries. Always enter the pool feet first and walk through it to the deep end so you can control your descent into the higher waters. Thank you. Question?
Any questions? Go ahead.
Our own Chief Mike Morgenstern, our Villa Park Fire Chief, had a very busy Saturday. Saturday was the carbon fire in unincorporated Brea, a brush fire that spread quickly, and he was the incident commander. He is the man who called in the air attack, he called in the heavy equipment, he guided the firefighters on the ground, and saved our city manager's house from burning down. So, in fact, there were no losses.
There were no structural losses and no civilian or firefighter injuries.
So I hope everyone doesn't mind in joining me in applauding our own Chief Mike Morgenstern.
Thank you, sir.
And don't go yet. We have 2 proclamations for you. One is Drowning Prevention and Awareness Season. The second one is Wildfire Awareness and Prevention Season. If I could have you come up so we can present this to you with a photo. At this time, we will hear comments from members of the public to address any off-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council, provided that no action may be taken on off-agenda items unless authorized by law. We will also be hearing public comments on each agenda item. Steve, is there anyone that is present or wrote in from the public that would like to comment on an off-agenda item?
No, Mayor.
Sorry. Now we will move into our agendized public hearing. Our first hearing is the review to waive reading in full of all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda. I would now open the hearing. Staff, please give the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item we have on every agenda. It's to allow us to conduct more efficient city council meetings. It's the same as we have each month, and we'd recommend approval.
Council members, do you have any questions of staff?
Move to approve?
Let's vote.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Passes by a vote of 5-0. Thank you.
Our next hearing is variance number 2026-01. I will now open the hearing. Staff, please give the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a variance, like you say, for 19120 Valley Drive. Caden Likens, our assistant planner, is going to make a presentation, so I'll hand it over to him.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Thank you for having me tonight. I am presenting variance number 2026-01 for a new 6-foot-tall front property line wall located at 19120 Valley Drive. The property is located in the single-family estate residential zone with an irregular lot configuration and shape with a sloped topography. The subject property is constructed with a 2-story single-family residence and attached garage totaling approximately 2,500 square feet. And there's also an existing pool located on the western side of the building on the side yard. The eastern side yard is impervious dirt that continues off into the undeveloped rear yard. And it is also important to note that the pool is bound by an existing chain link fence. The area west of the chain link fence is part of the property but is undeveloped and recently had landscaping that was removed. The property slopes from the front of the property to the rear in a southerly direction, in which the front of the property is bound by the public right-of-way, Valley Drive. It is important to note that the front property line is 418 feet long. Currently, the site is bound by an existing 3.5-foot tall white fence along the front property line, which begins in the northeastern corner and runs for approximately 215 feet. Continued from the 3.5-foot tall white fence is an existing 5-foot tall chain link fence for approximately 95 feet along the front property line. That chain link fence bends inward towards the rear property line. The final 105 feet along the front property line does not have any front property line fencing or barriers. The rear is adjacent to two separate properties on Hunting Circle to the south, one of which is owned by the same property owner, 9292 Hunting Circle. There are no physical barriers between the two properties, so that they are open to one another. The additional property adjacent to the rear is bound by an existing block wall with a white fence on top, which is approximately 5 feet tall. You can refer to Exhibit H for existing site photographs. The applicant, Frank Wancho, who is representing property owner John Burrill, is applying for variance which involves a request to construct a new 206-foot long, 6-foot tall concrete masonry unit wall along the front property line within the estate residential zoning district. The Villa Park Municipal Code requires all fences and walls to be 3.5 feet tall within this zoning district, within the front setback area. The variance will request to exceed the maximum allowable height, a deviation of 2.5 feet for the 6-foot tall wall. The primary intent for the wall is to create a solid barrier for the existing swimming pool that is located in the front yard area, in which it will replace the existing chain link fence pool barrier. Additionally, the new 6-foot tall wall provides safety and privacy, as well as protection and security from unauthorized viewpoints and access to the subject property. The engineering and planning department have determined that the proposed wall will not result in a line of sight issue along for vehicles or pedestrians along Valley or the or Auburn Circle, which is across Valley. California Government Code Section 65906 allows cities to grant variances based on physical characteristics specific to properties. Upon close evaluation and available county and city records, as well as the submittal application, staff has determined that the property does possess inherent physical characteristics that set it apart from other properties. The property has an irregular lot configuration. On the western side boundary, the lot is 50 feet in depth, which is shorter than any lot I've seen in the city. In addition, there are difficult contours and topography when viewing the city viewing the property from the public right-of-way along the front. Variance number 2026 is not expected to have a significant impact on the environment. Therefore, it's categorically exempt per section 15303, new construction or conversion of small structures. Public hearing notices were posted and mailed out to property owners within 300 feet in accordance to city and state requirements. The city has received 2 letters of opposition for the proposal and 0 letters of support. City staff recommends approval of variance number 2026-01 based on the findings outlined in resolution 2026-3637, and that the item is categorically exempt per section 15303 as well as 15304. That concludes staff's presentation, and I'm open to any questions the council may have.
Any question from the council? Okay, go ahead.
I guess I'm looking at the site plan. I don't know what page it is, but it's the site plan. And I believe that one object on there is the pool that is shaped like a, is that the
Yeah, it's
pool?
irregular shaped, yeah.
Right now, currently, is there a barrier between the street and the pool?
Yes,
Okay.
that is the existing chain link
link
fence.
Okay, so then I guess my question is, how do we determine that the pool is in the front yard?
It would be determined by the front yard setback area,
Okay.
which is that 30 feet. So if any portion of that pool is within that area,
And you may have said this, but how far is that pool into the front yard setback?
we don't have the direct measurement. I do know that there is a big grade difference. I don't have the direct setback from the pool to the property line.
But then how do we know it's in the front yard?
I would say based off of visualizations and site
It may
visits.
not be in the front yard. It may actually, right?
That could be correct, but based off of our viewpoints, with that grade difference from the public right-of-way, the pool's roughly 10 feet below that public right-of-way. When looking down on it, it looks to be within 30 feet from the front setback area or front property line.
Okay. Thank you.
So I was not invited to see the property by the homeowner, and it's not a requirement, but it would have been helpful because, like you said, the lot is difficult. And so the plans, there was no really front elevation provided to us either, and the writing was sufficiently small and blurry on what we were provided that it's a little unclear what section is getting the wall. So the front picket fence is staying the same. The wall is then going in place of the chain link fence, correct?
That is correct. So if you are referring to the site plan,
Yes.
in this very top, if you're looking at the site plan, in the top right corner is the existing 3.5-foot tall fence, which runs down just to about the beginning of Aubrey Circle, in which at the beginning of Aubrey Circle is the beginning of the chain link fence. The chain link fence runs for approximately 95 feet in a western direction, and then cuts inward towards the rear property line.
And so the block wall then will replace this fence.
The block wall will replace the fence along the front property line and continue to the western corner of the lot.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other question from the council?
I have a comment after public comment.
Hold on one sec.
I have a comment as well, but not questions.
Okay, can we save that? Sure. Okay, would you mind? Okay. Is there anyone here to speak at this hearing or the applicant?
I'm not aware if the applicant's here, but we have, like you said, we have 2 letters of opposition from neighboring residents.
Okay. The owner is here. Would you like to speak?
Mayor, City Council, my name is John Burrell. I own 2 homes here in the city of Villa Park, the 9292 Hunting Circle home and then the 19120 Valley Drive home. That Valley Drive home is really like our backyard now. And so the idea is for privacy and protection of our property. And so that's all we're trying to accomplish here. We're trying to replace a probably 90-year-old, chain link fence, put it in a nice 6-foot tall block wall that's going to be split face, should be beautiful, going to spend a bunch of money. And it's really for safety, protection. The pool is there. So that's all we're trying to accomplish. I know a few of the council members and the mayor have seen the property. I apologize to the 2 of you that I did not invite you. And it seemed like they looked at the property and seemed to agree that it made sense to put the fence in. So I would appreciate it if you take all this into consideration. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Council, do you have any question for the owner?
Sorry, John, I want to make you stand. So when I went and visited you, we talked about the fact that at the top of Valley, there's 2 behemoth homes, one next to our former councilman and one across the street from him. And you'd said part of this was defense. You didn't want to have a gigantic box that was built right behind you looking down into your backyard.
That was why we spent all the money and purchased
there.
a 1937 home.
Yeah, yeah, and that you're planning on keeping
Yes,
there.
yes.
And the character of the home with the picket fence will remain the same on the front of the house. We're talking to the right of it where the
Yeah.
pool is.
Correct.
And it is an unusual lot in that it's long and skinny. And I tried to persuade city staff that is it really a front yard? It's not really a front yard. It's a back side yard. And
Because of the situation, having the two homes and now purchasing that home and having it, like I say, to me, I treat that as our backyard now. And so, yeah, it's an odd situation, obviously.
yeah, that was my question, that it was a defensive, to keep from building a gigantic,
To purchase a
like we
home-
have at Santiago and Center at the top of Valley.
To purchase a home is very defensive. Wife and I, like you say, the homes on Valley at the very end, large box homes, we assumed that somebody would knock that house down, put something like that there, and they would have the total drop on us.
Great, I've got more comments for later.
I have a question for the homeowner. Did you involve your neighbors at all?
I did, you know what, I apologize.
I didn't-
I have.
You
I've-
did or did not?
Well,
I
yeah,
didn't-
I have verbally spoken to every neighbor that's in the general area, and I've got one signature, and I apologize, I totally forgot to go around and get signatures from the others, but I've verbally spoken to Mo, who, he owns Optima, he's right on the corner there. I've spoken to Lee, I've spoken to Seth, I've spoken to everybody that lives locally there, and they were all fine with the project.
But how do we know that?
I totally understand, I have no defense.
So right now, all we have are 2 letters of opposition.
I understand, that's my fault.
So I talked to PJ Lickle, Diane's son,
Right.
Who's right across the street, the corner of Aubrey and Valley. I talked to him yesterday, and he has no problem with it. His mom is there, but not elderly age, so she's not going to really be signing anything or doing any letters or coming down here. But PJ said they thought it was great, that they're sick of looking at the chain link fence, and that this will be a big improvement. And then Lee Cornett, who's the one that's the neighbor right above, right next to the Lickles.
Right.
My folks went and played cards there the other night, so I made sure former Councilman John Frackleton asked Lee, did he have any issues with it? And his response was, no, it was great. It was going to be great for the neighborhood. And they're thrilled they're not going to get another big box on their street, that it's going to
Right.
stay a cute ranch home with a nice picket fence and with a nice block wall instead of the chain link.
PJ's wife actually did sign off on it, so I have that. And like I say, it's just my fault. I didn't follow through. I didn't think about it. It's unfortunate on my part.
I also want to mention it is not a requirement from the applicant to must submit any kind of opposition or support letter. So I appreciate. Just want
I
to say
think
out
my
loud.
thought was that you were going to mail out the flyer and that everybody within, X amount of distance, was going to have an opportunity to talk about it. So I didn't think that was necessary.
Not a problem at all. Any other question for the owner?
Yeah, I want to echo Councilman Frackleton's comments. There was a complaint that the wall creates a compound, and I find that irrelevant because anyone can grow hedges and trees to accomplish a compound without a variance. So you are going through the process to address an issue of safety and for both vehicles and people from Valley. That is a large slope going back down, and not to mention the pool. So it encloses that portion of the property. You could have applied the variance against the whole front of the property, and you didn't. You kept the trees, the picket fence the way it is, and the driveway, et cetera. So I find that you've addressed the issues of the aesthetics. You can see the elevation is in the plans and just shows the masonry-style wall.
Just the wall.
Yeah, so, and I find that, well, he doesn't show landscaping, but that would be in a different, yeah. It's not in the plans for that. That would have to be a rendering, different process altogether. The block wall is much more aesthetic than the chain link fence, so thank you.
No, and also I can't utilize my whole property. That area, which you kind of call the gully, that's my property as well. And it has no fence there. So I can't utilize it unless I put a fence up.
Okay, thank you. Any other question for the owner? No, okay. All right, thank you.
Mayor.
You may
Thank you,
have a
council.
seat, and now the council would have a discussion or comments. Go ahead.
So as I said, I didn't have the opportunity to go see it. So what I, though, could see from the street was that ugly chain link fence. So I think, a block wall would be a significant improvement there. And in talking to the city manager, he said that the reason that it's now very open to the pool is that some vegetation was cleared. So my initial concern was that you had cleared vegetation than just to then get a variance and an exception to the rules for the block wall, which I know, like in talking to staff, that it was mainly weeds. It wasn't like established landscaping that was pulled out. And so kind of, going back to OCFA and how they encourage home hardening, clearing out all of that brush and weeds and, getting rid of the chain link fence in favor of a block wall could be a significant improvement and good home hardening and just good practice as well. So although, I in general don't like a prison-like look, where you have big walls in the front yard, the whole purpose of having variances is for these really unusual lots. And it definitely is a very unusual lot, very long and skinny. And I appreciate that the home is going to be left with the very low picket fence, so you still have that look. So overall, I am in favor of this.
Thank you. Any other discussion or comments? Go ahead.
Comment. So I'm still really uncomfortable making a decision when I can't get on the property. So I drove by also trying to figure it out. For the record, I think you mentioned it, but two of us were left out. So my concern with that is the implications of it. It kind of looks bad, if 3 individuals were able to go see the property on site, physically go on. I even went to Hunting Circle to try to see if I could get that way. Obviously, I can't walk onto your property because I'd get arrested. So it's really hard for me to make a decision on this without being able to be on the property to actually see how far into the front yard setback that pool in the front yard is. I mean, there's a lot of questions I have that I'm not able to answer and that I couldn't answer by visually standing on the street. So I don't know if you noticed, I was there today for a while. So the variances, remember, we're being asked to make an exception to the rule, and each case is independent. But again, when only a portion of us are able to access the property to make a determination on that, it's really hard, and I'm not really comfortable making that decision. I would, and I hear that the councilman on this council said that they've spoken to people. That's fantastic. It would be really nice to have your neighbors write something in or whatever. I would like to be able to visit the property and make a really good informed decision. I would ask that maybe we would continue this so that several of us that weren't able to participate in your request could do so, and then maybe also give a chance to speak with some of the neighbors that were in opposition. Otherwise, right now, as it stands, I'm not comfortable. I don't know the property. I haven't seen it on site, and so that's where I am. So I'm happy to make a substitute motion to continue it if we're at that point, or not.
We haven't had an original motion at this point, so there's been no motion on the floor.
So I can't make the substitute motion.
You can make a motion to continue, which would be a primary motion.
I can make a motion, yes. And so I was going to say also is in 8 years, 2 terms, I've never had it where only portions of the council have been invited. So it just makes it really hard to make an informed decision. So I can make a motion that we continue this to allow others to be able to see the property and make informed decisions.
That's okay. The council made the motion. Do I hear any second for this motion? Okay, here no second. The motion is failed. Any other council member would like to comment or speak on this matter before we move forward?
I would just like to add that, I am in agreement with Councilwoman Miles about the difficulty in making this determination without being on site, but I do appreciate that it's not a requirement. There is no resident that has to contact council to come visit their project. And so, I appreciate that, and it's up to us to do our due diligence outside of that. And so, I still, even though I think it's best practice, to have us actually go and see it in person, because then we are able to make a better informed decision. Being as it's not a requirement, I'm totally comfortable with the due diligence I performed. I was able to talk with staff. I did visit the site from the street, got clarification on the plans, and, we're able to ask questions of staff here. So I am still fully comfortable making a decision this evening.
Great. Any other comments? Otherwise, I will close. Okay, then I will close the discussion. Is there any motion on this matter?
I make a motion to approve the variance number 2026-1.
Do I hear any second?
I'll second.
All right, let's vote, council.
Passes by a 4-0 vote with Councilwoman Miles abstaining.
Thank you. Moving right along to our next item is conditional use permit 2026-01. I will now open the hearing. Staff, please give the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a conditional use permit, as you mentioned. It's for 18222 Fernando Circle, and again, I'll let Caden take over.
Conditional use permit 2026-01 is for a recreational court to be used as a half-court basketball court located at 18222 Fernando Circle. The property is located in the estate residential zone and has a rectangular lot configuration with a minor slope from the front of the property to the rear. The subject property is improved with a 3,195 square foot single-family residence with a future detached 600 square foot accessory dwelling unit, which is under a separate permit. Note that the future ADU is reviewed and processed ministerially and is not part of the conditional use permit. The perimeter of the subject property is bounded by a variety of existing walls. The rear and western side property line are bound by an existing 32-inch tall CMU wall with a steel fence atop, totaling 6 feet in height, and the eastern side is bound by a 6-foot CMU wall. Planted throughout the property is dense landscaping, mature trees, shrubs, and ground cover. As mentioned, the property contains a slope topography from the front of the property to the rear, in which the grade elevation of the home is 311 feet. And the elevation of the rear, which the proposed court is located, is 304 feet. The applicant and homeowner, Dung Du and Thionki Tunu, apologies if I mispronounced, applied back in October of 2025 for their accessory dwelling unit permit and was notified that the recreational court that was proposed would require a conditional use permit. This conditional use permit, as requested by the applicant, was postponed, and on March 23rd, 2026, the property owner submitted a complete application for the conditional use permit. The conditional use permit requests approval to permit a 1,800 square foot concrete recreational court measured 60 feet wide and 30 feet long to be used as a half-court basketball court. There's one proposed hoop with one attached light fixture atop the basketball hoop. The basketball court is proposed to be in the southwest corner of the site, located 5 feet from the rear property line and 5, which is the southern side, and 5 feet from the side property line, which is the western side. On the eastern side property line is a 35-foot setback to the court. The basketball hoop will be located in the middle of the court, with a 36-foot setback to the side property line and rear property line. The setback to the eastern side property line will be approximately 60 feet. The basketball hoop measures 12 feet and 8 inches in height, in which the light fixture will be attached above the hoop, totaling 18 feet and 4 inches in height. No additional fencing or features will be added to the recreational court. In the Villa Park Municipal Code, it requires all lighting in R zones to be maintained primarily for security or safety, to be operated 24 hours a day, provided that the light is designated, constructed, mounted, and maintained so that the direct rays of the light are directed towards the interior of the lot and do not extend beyond the property lines of the lot, so that the individual bulbs used for such security lighting shall not exceed 60 watts. The applicant is proposing a Goalrilla solar hoop light, which is attached to the basketball hoop and is proposed to be directed down towards the court. The wattage of the proposed light emits 4,000 lumens with 10 watts maximum, which complies with all lighting requirements in the code. The light fixture can be turned off via a remote control, so there's no sensor or time kind of put on it. The proposed recreational court has applied for a grading permit and is pending a grading, has applied with a grading plan and is pending a grading permit, pending conditional use permit 2026-01, as the recreational court is part of their plans. The grading is ready to be approved by our engineering department. Upon close evaluation of county and city records, as well as the submittal package, city staff has determined that the proposal is a compatible use with minimal impacts to the adjacent residences in terms of noise and light. The proposed court, as well as the hoop and light, is located more than 100 feet from all adjacent residence buildings, and there are no adjacent residences to the rear. Additionally, the property line walls, as well as the existing landscaping, will help limit noise generated from the use of the basketball court. Conditional use permit 2026-01 is not expected to have significant impact on the environment, therefore is categorically exempt per section 15303. City staff recommends approval of conditional use permit 2026-01 based on the findings outlined in resolution 2026-3636. That concludes staff's presentation, and I'm open to any questions the council may have. The applicant is also present.
Any questions, council? Okay.
Under the introduction on page 2, it says to the west, the current land use is Old Lamplighter Lane and one single-family residence. Is that a typo?
That must be. That does look like a typo.
Okay. So maybe we can correct that when, because yeah, Old Lamplighter Lane's ways away.
That's not nearby.
Yeah, that's not nearby. Okay, that was my only question, because then I'm like, wait a minute, are we not talking about what I think we're talking about? And then this does back to open space.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's all I had.
Go ahead.
Caden, the house next door, 18232, looks like it already has an existing concrete pad with a basketball hoop. If I look at Google Earth, and then the two beyond that also have full tennis courts. And then it's just so, I like privacy in the 21st century. And people on the other side is a garden, and the other ones have a shed. So it seems like it's pretty common that people are doing stuff back there, court-wise or otherwise. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. The CUP is different from a variance, and can you, just for those that may not know, can you explain the difference?
Yes, so a conditional use permit as stated in the name, is directed towards the use of what is being proposed, in that they are applying for their proposed use to be permitted in the city. The conditions that can be applied to the conditional use permit are imposed by staff and the city council that can limit the operations of that proposed use. A variance is a deviation from the municipal code, in which states kind of requirements that can vary from noise, development standards, etc. The variance proposal and application is a request to deviate, move away from those requirements based on specific characteristics or circumstances to your request.
And then, thank you, that was really thorough. And then this CUP is tied with their ADU, right? So it's the ADU is ministerial, and then it's tied with that, meaning it's part of their whole.
The conditional use permit and the accessory dwelling unit are two completely separate applications.
Yes, they're separate, but I mean, like, it's the ADU, and then the reason why they waited is because they wanted to include the CUP with their plans.
Yes,
Not that it's
yes.
tied together, like we have nothing to do with their
Yeah,
ADU.
and
Just,
their
sorry, I
plans,
misspoke
like
on that.
their engineering grading plans and such, took some time to kind of get complete. And as things are, funding, construction, everything in
right.
the above, their timing had them wait.
Okay, and then just to confirm, so the basketball half court or court or whatever, it's 100 feet inside the property on both sides, right? From neighbors? Is that what it,
From neighboring buildings.
yeah, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Councilwoman Miles brings up a good point. This is a CUP, and so we've also put on there restrictions like the lights have to go off at 10 p.m., and he can't run a basketball youth league in his backyard. It's for their own purposes, et cetera, correct?
Correct. Standard conditions of approval in relation to noise and use of the recreational court and lighting have been applied with timeframes and such.
And I spoke to one resident who's really in favor of it, so. That's it. That's it.
Any other question for the staff? Okay. Is there anyone here to speak at this hearing?
Nobody has submitted an application.
And I understand Kaden mentioned the owners are here. Would you guys like to speak, or you don't need to speak? All right. I appreciate that, saving us some time. Oops. In that case, is there any discussion or comments from the council?
Did anyone have a chance to see it?
No, and generally speaking, it is really helpful if we can go out and see it. But the photographs that you included were great. It really allowed us to visualize the lighting and what the court will look like. And the site plan was extremely thorough. It was noted in several different places. And the fact that it's right up against open space, too, is, very appropriate. So.
Well, and since all of us didn't see it, which is, a lot different than having private access by some. So I'll make a motion if you're ready at that point, Mayor.
Just let me ask one last time. All right, please make the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve CUP 2026-01.
I'll second.
Let's vote.
Passes by a 5-0 vote. Thank you.
Now we will consider our consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered routine and are usually enacted by one motion approving the recommended action listed on the agenda. Any member of the city council, staff, or the public may request an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion or separate action. Council members, are there any items from number 4 to 11 that you would like to remove from the consent calendar?
Item 9, please.
9?
9.
9.
Okay. Any other items? All right, I have agenda item number 9. pulled from the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the balance?
I'll move it.
Okay, let's move. Let's vote.
Passes by a 5-0 vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we will take up the number 9 item that was Paul. Member Miles.
Thank you. My concern is just this item. I don't really care for it being in consent because we're asking for $20,000 more than what we originally approved on the contract. So, and that's not really a small adjustment. Just out of transparency and good governance, I feel like it should have been on an action item instead of in the consent. So if we're being asked to spend more than what we agreed to the first time, I feel like we should talk about it openly. And so I would love just to have the city manager kind of give a discussion, because unless you go into the consent calendar and click on it and read it, you're not going to see it. And consent items get moved in one motion. So if the city manager would just kind of give an explanation as to why we are trying to get $20,000 more towards a contract.
Thank you. Point taken. This is, we use 3 different plan checks. We use Malad, VCA, and Sagecrest Planning Environmental, and we use them on various, to do our plan checks. And those we rotate around. Those are their various expertise and availability. We use 3 different firms because we try and, as we've stated before, we try and have a 30-day turnaround on the initial review of all of our plan checks. So in order to do that, one company can't necessarily do this. So over the years, we've had problems with just one. So probably about 3 to 4 years, we expanded to have a sort of an on-call list, if you will. So this is Malad is probably our longest term firm that we have used, and they are probably their most available. And we use them also, some of them have different expertise. Some of these firms are bigger at, depending on different types of projects. So if it's a total rebuild, that's a different project than somebody else might be doing something. So in essence, what we're doing is we're doing the availability, and this will bring us to a total of $50,000. Next year, in our budget, we're budgeting $150,000, which would put $50,000 on all of the contracts. So we are simply using them, and it's based on availability. So we do rotate. It's not like one person's getting 150. It's all of them will have that type of money in them next year, fiscal year. So I
That's
appreciate
perfect.
the
Thank you.
thing.
Yeah.
So
Just wanted it to be explained. That's all. Thank you.
So I have similar questions along those lines. It's a 66% increase obviously flags a lot of attention. Is there, it comes down to what you were saying, though, how you disperse these. So I presume that the other vendors have not spent their allowable contract amounts?
well, it varies depending on what's availability of staff, et cetera. So Malad may have more available than Sagecrest or VCA at any given time. Sometimes we don't go necessarily to VCA because we use VCAs for our building permit. So sometimes it's nice to get a different contractor looking at plan check. So we're not having the same bodies looking at everything.
So who makes that decision then?
So our building group, and then you have consultations with Alyssa, who monitors the contracts to contract them out.
Ray or Caden then?
No, it will be done, our building people will do it in consultation with Alyssa as contracts amounts are available, et cetera. So it's a mutual decision. Every Wednesday, we sit down and have conversations with all of our departments, engineering, planning, building, and code enforcement. We all sit down and talk.
And so relative to the permit process, we don't really have full cost recovery for a complex plan check review then, correct?
Yes, we do. We do. We fully charge and track by project.
Okay.
And they're billed out to the respective parties. So we do that. So it doesn't matter what vendor they use, we're going to get full cost recovery.
Yeah, and so it's nothing but increasing their contract allowable amount then, right?
Correct.
For
And it will
time
be billed
material.
out subsequently to the contractor, whoever the applicants. And that's sort of an important element, that these are not general funds that we're putting out. It's just contractor money. The other thing I hadn't mentioned, which I should, there's a volume issue, which as more contracts, so we are getting into an area right now where we've had more building permits and things issued in the last year and a half than we have in quite some time. That's a combination of availability of workers, as you know, in the industry. Sometimes it's supplies, sometimes it's interest rates that affect it. But right now, we seem to have a proliferation of a lot of building permit requests coming through.
A COVID echo.
Yeah, probably. You're probably correct.
You've answered my questions.
That was the question was on the volume. So that's, the good news is there's a big volume, and so we're using these services, but we should get reimbursed for it, so it should have a net effect, hopefully, of,
It will have more than a positive effect because the
Because
extent
of
the
the
projects are
property
built.
tax money.
Once they're finished, we get a notice of occupancy and the assessor comes in and does their work and says, okay, now the value is that, and your tax value go up. And as you know, we're over 95% property tax oriented, so we live and die on that. So to the extent that we can properly turn these around very quickly, it's in our best interest. And of note is, I don't know, and talking to other city managers and other cities, where a 30-day turnaround on initial comments is a goal. That's not a goal that you see typically in other cities. So that's our initial comments. That doesn't mean you're going to final approval at that time. It means the initial set of review is happening at that time. So that is how we live. Property taxes are our bread and butter, if you will. So volume is a good thing. Not only the projects getting done and the community being upgraded. We have a lot of homes, as you know, that are being purchased, and they used to be purchased for remodels, and now we're getting a lot of tear down, start overs. And that's changing the world of who and what kind of plans we have reviewed.
Any other comments or questions? In other words, this is a good thing. That it's not a loss, so can I have any motion?
I will move the item for approval.
second?
All right, let's vote.
Passes by a 5-0 vote. Thank you.
All right, our first item of new business is the approval of the First Amendment to the 5-year agreement with the Orange County Sheriff Coroner covering July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2030. Staff, please give a staff report.
Thank you. To start, it's an interesting anomaly. The sheriff calls them 5-year agreements, but every year we have to approve a service level. So they're really not 5-year agreements. And we've had this discussion with multiple council people. So it is, it's the sheriff and it's not us. It's a 1-year deal basically, but what it does is allow, in fairness to explain it, it allows the sheriff to depreciate vehicles and purchases of those kind by having a 5-year term in concept. However, the agreement that we have has us approve a service level every year. And they have to come back. The sheriff likes that because they increase their costs every year. So it's open-ended. It's not a flat dollar count for 5 years. They won't agree to that, although we have asked them. Anyway, so this is our agreement for the year 26-27, and it does include a current base level service that is the same as there's no changes. What interesting is what the variances you see were twofold. They basically align the actual service hours. So they track their service hours of what types of people and things, the services that our people are working, et cetera. And then they assign them to the various cities accordingly by start time need. Then secondly, that you'll see variances in probably my big bone of contention with the sheriff is always their overhead. And it's not the captain I'm speaking of, it's his support personnel that he doesn't have any control over. But those people, that's a hefty portion of our contract, unfortunately. But the same basic level of service will be provided. Now, interestingly enough, when they did their assessment of the sheriff deputies' assignments, and you see that on page 2 of the staff report about the percentage of people that are assigned to us, we have one full-time designated deputy, and we have a host of other staff that do a lot of different things, including traffic, investigation, all sorts of, we even have an office support. They realigned that, and we have a school resource officer. We have a deputy shift for increased presence in the 4th of July, and we have a motorcycle patrol sergeant, which to their credit, they have not raised that fee, which he started with now, I guess he's Assistant Sheriff Puckett when he was a captain here. So that's some time ago, so we're getting the hours there at the same cost we originally contracted for him. So I will acknowledge them once in a while. We get excellent service, and the key here is that they have aligned the staffing level, and in doing so, our bill actually goes down 0.34%, or about what is it, $8,000. That's the good news. The bad news is they're in negotiation with deputies, and every percentage increase that they give to the deputy and the unions will be about a $17,000 increase. So we're going down $8,000 now, which I would say with, hallelujah, if you know what I mean, but it's not going to happen because they're in negotiation. So you can multiply out, a 5% raise is going to be over $80,000. We'll go the other direction. We don't negotiate that, and I've talked during the budget hearings, to the extent you talk to the supervisors, the Board of Supervisors, I would certainly hope that you mention that what they're negotiating affects us, and we have to pay for it out of our general fund. So that's where the key here is. But in fairness, we are very, very fortunate to have the sheriff and the crime rates and things we have, the service and response times. Very, very proud to be able to recommend this. I think that we have some of the best law enforcement services in the county, if not the state. So, and we've had captain after captain that has maintained that high bar standard. And so I strongly recommend we continue with them. They have provided services to us since we were prior to incorporation in 1962. The Orange County Sheriff has been a presence here. And I think that it provides that continuity, and I'm very proud to be able to recommend approval.
All right, council, do you have any questions of staff? Go ahead.
This is in, bless you. I guess how, if we go forward with the flock cameras, let's say that, we now all of a sudden have flock cameras. So I notice in the contract, it talks about in-car video and body-worn cameras and mobile data computers. And so all of this, the money then can go to get new equipment or help whatever. So let's say that we've approved some sort of, maybe not flock, Axon, whatever it is. Will we have to increase the contract? Because as it stands right now, I didn't see anything in here that talked about the communication between license readers and sheriff.
So what's interesting is that if we were to go with license plate readers, it would be a separate contract with a vendor. So we would contract with the vendor in question, and we would have a side agreement with the sheriff so that we could integrate the data with what they have. Now, what the key is, and I think several of you have been involved, I know Councilwoman Jones has had this discussion, they currently use and have this technology, so it's integrated into their system. So they have the IT systems that we can integrate with. So we won't have to be charged anything more.
Right.
We will have to charge more for the actual cameras and the installation, which we would do, but we would have the data collection. That's a side agreement.
That was, yeah. So obviously, if there's agreement with cameras and a vendor supply, it was more just, do we have to worry about accessing that data? But since you guys already use it, then we can pretty much.
Several cities use that, and I think they have, and that's why we've been doing it in concert and going with it. And they've been very helpful in talking about the types of data, and even the protection of the data, I think, has been a discussion we've had with them.
Yep, I'm familiar. Thank you.
Fantastic. Any other questions?
I have a question. Do we know, have the deputies union publicized what their proposal is as far as a percentage increase?
I'll defer to the captain.
What's been traditionally, are they typically a 3%, a 4%, a 5%? What is their?
The last contractual raise was large. I think it was a 3-year contract. I haven't heard anything, honestly, this year because of the county.
So they got the big one last time, so maybe this will be the one that's not so much?
I would only be speculating.
Speculating, I get it. All right, but I think we should, Steve, what's your experience? Has it
We are
been
hearing
5%?
sort of like 3%, 3-year contracts with 17% over 3 years, and that's not unheard of and going on. I don't know what the captain's hearing. But those are not for them, but for other cities who have their own police departments. So typically, cities who have their own police departments try and be they all try and be competitive. So as a barometer, I think you're probably talking about potentially anywhere up to, a double-digit percentage increase potentially over multiple years.
Well, so we're approving, if we approve this, we're approving the decrease of 0.34%, but with the caveat that we're going to pay 17 grand for every percentage increase.
Correct.
And it could be anything. It could be 1, 2, 3, or 30.
Correct.
Would we come back if it's?
It would be, if there's an amendment, we would have to come back.
If it's some outrageous number?
Yeah, it would have, any amendment will come back to us. That's the one advantage of the way we set up the contracts. Does that mean we're gonna like the percentage we come back, or we even have options? That's another issue.
So we're not giving just carte blanche to, and hoping that Pat and her staff, and the people she work for do a good job.
No, I mean, I think that, you know, the sheriff's cognizant. We meet, the city managers of the contracted cities meet, and I think that's, Captain's been there with us, and every one of us has spoken up and said, you know, time out, remember you're affecting us. However, I think you also have to keep in mind, and they remind us this, they carry the unfunded actuarial liability that we don't.
Right. I'm just
So-
saying. I
so
mean,
they
this
carry a
could-
burden
this could
that
be
we
a-
don't,
This
so-
could be $100,000 swing. I mean, it
It has been 100,000 in
it's
the
a
past.
big dollar amount.
It has been in the past, we've experienced that.
So I'm not sure what I'm voting for.
So Mayor, maybe I can answer that question. So under state law, whenever a law enforcement agency contracts with a city to provide services, it actually applies to any type of public safety provider, they can only charge their cost. So they actually have finance guys at the sheriff's department who wear black suits, black ties, look like they're in the Matrix, do all these cost allocations. It's true, you know, I mean, that do all these cost allocations, and then they get cooked into the contract, and we can either accept that or not accept that. The way the city can control costs is service level, right? So if you want to reduce your cost, you reduce the service level. And there's a threshold under which the sheriff will not go under because they want to provide a certain amount of service, but that is your mechanism. So to answer specifically as to your question, if the deputies union gets, 17% over 3 years, yes, we are on the hook to pay that until we come back and you reduce service levels, or alternatively, go to a different service provider, which is obviously a huge deal, like, City of Orange, City of Anaheim.
And that's my point of,
Yeah.
the cities and the county tend to be very comparable among the police salary levels. So you're not going to see one exorbitant, you're not seeing one that's paid way beyond whatever, because there's attrition. The deputies will leave if they get paid elsewhere, and vice versa. So you don't really, you have a lot of parity. So if an alternative is sort of challenging, about what there is. I mean, and then the other thing is like Orange or Anaheim would be the only real options. I think Tustin may have their own police department too, but
Or you could just hire a Barney Fife type and put him in a back office. Under the law, you have to have a police chief. But once again, directly to your question, yes, you're buying, a contract without a full dollar amount in ink.
it's not capitated. That's the point. It's not capitated, and again, that's why I've reminded you, the budget hearings and now, this is where, hopefully Pat's taking this back to her boss, that this is a negotiation that affects not just the county departments and the unincorporated area, but all the contract cities. And I think that's a big issue there.
I'm the newbie. I've never been through this sheriff's contract. Is this typical
It is typical.
It is
every year?
It is
Okay.
routine.
Yep. Well, and Orange County Sheriffs does an amazing job, and they're outstanding, and they're fantastic, and I can't say enough. But it's frustrating that we don't know what we're paying for.
Right, and I think that's sort of, there's two ways to look at it. What you got to look at is since 1960, prior to 1962, we've been in excellent hands with the sheriff. And so I think, obviously Sheriff Barnes is conscious of cost containment. I mean, it's his budget too. So he's got to worry about his unincorporated area, he's got limits, et cetera. So I think he's conscious, but the quality of service is what we're paying for. And I think that's an element too that stands above, what is the price of public safety? That's where you kind of get down to at some point, you're going to say, okay, public safety is more important than, hunkering down and get the cheapest dollar that you can get.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, I was in the audience over a decade ago, before any of us were on council, and we were entertaining other options to the sheriff's department, and we were entertaining City of Orange, and they did a big presentation, and City of Anaheim came and did a big presentation, and really they just didn't hold a candle to the Orange County Sheriff's Department. It really was. I mean, what we are getting being part of the Orange County Sheriff's Department is tremendous, and so, yeah, I think nothing else held a candle to
And the other thing I want to keep, the sheriff provides services under their board, I forget what ordinance it is, they have an ordinance, they provide bomb squad and certain things like that we're not charged for.
True.
So we get like SWAT teams and bomb squads and extra equipment that the sheriff provides us that thankfully we don't ever need, or hope that we don't ever need, but in the event we do, we're not charged for it. And that's something that's pretty irregular, and we're fortunate there. Like the helicopters, we're not charged for helicopter service by the sheriff. That's amazing, and that we, you go to LA County, I know charges for them. So we are fortunate in that regard. So there are some real strong benefits for the sheriff. So not only good service, but there are extra side benefits. And I know that discussion has been had at the county a lot, even though the time I spent in the county, that was a discussion every year, like, why are we providing these freebies to the cities? And, it was sort of this long gone approval way back when.
Obviously, I'm very supportive of our sheriff and love you guys and think you're great. Would never want to see you leave. Just a question though, in looking at the shared staff and investigation services, and we're 1/2 of one investigation unit and 0.49% of 0.6 of one SARD. If it got to the point where, let's say, I'm off council and it's this future council, is that something that can be manipulated? So then that way we're not, say, getting shocked with maybe, a huge
Typically,
increase?
their service levels are defined, like investigators and things like that, I don't get to assign because those are used based on service hours. So those are actual, the way they upper and lower percentages is the amount of actual hours that they track for those people. So if we have a very low crime, we're gonna have lower rates. But that's a service level where the sheriff's not gonna say, no, I'm not gonna say you can't have an investigator, you can cut back, or whatever. They will let you do deputies or the motor patrol. Those are the kinds of things that they'll let you adjust, if I'm stating correctly.
So in the future, there is some room, I guess, because, Villa Park prides itself, every council prior, including this council, we've had balanced budgets.
Right.
And, so if it got to that point, there are areas that could be manipulated, swaged maybe into helping decrease some costs.
So, yes, and I think, I'm not sure who, several of the council members have been involved. We have special services in there right now, where we're paying for special events for the foundation, and that's a good example, where we're covering or subsidizing events that our foundation is doing. However, that doesn't necessarily be the city that has to pay for that. That's why we've asked for them to recoup and asked for them to charge some more of their bill. So, yeah, there's room, and we have special directed services. So we can change some of the service levels if we want to. Do we want to is going to be the question.
Right.
And is there the desire, and that's something that council would have to decide. But yeah, that's sort of, there is some room. I would never, the sheriff, like Todd said, the sheriff is going to say there's a minimum level. They'll never go without a deputy on duty, for instance. They just won't do it, and I understand that. I don't think we'd want it.
No.
But there are certain levels, and the sheriff, Sheriff Barnes actually has told, several cities go through major negotiations every year about number of motor vehicles they have, number of, how traffic enforcement actions they have. Even the SROs are discussions among various cities. We don't have those because we don't have a very extravagant level of service, candidly. We don't have a Cadillac version of sheriff. We just have Cadillac service. We don't have Cadillac service paid levels, if that makes sense.
And I'm not advocating that we reduce any kind of our service levels. It was just a comment that perhaps in the future, if a council needed to look at something, that would be an area. But I am fully supportive of.
So Todd wants to hire Barney Fife. I'm not really there. I'm not ready for that.
All right.
Alyssa has no idea who you're even talking
Yeah, no, she doesn't. Look
She
at
does
Google
trivia.
it.
She knows trivia.
Google it.
Steve, is there anyone who is present or wrote in from the public that would like to comment on this item?
No.
Okay. I think we have enough discussion. Can I entertain any kind of motion?
So moved.
Okay, let's vote.
Passes 5-0. And I do want to thank the sheriff and the captain. We've had excellent services, and one captain, another seems to, we always wonder if we're going to have a good level of, and we seem to get better each time. And I'm very fortunate that we have Captain Timmons, who's has me on speed dial over the weekends, and he hears from me all the time. So I think I've interrupted more of his family time than ever. And they're always responsive, so we're very fortunate, and I really do appreciate the level. They've met with you on the e-bikes ordinance, and they do extra time, so I think they're available. So we do get very good service. I think the residents need to basically thank the deputies when they see them, because we just get phenomenal service here.
Agreed.
Thank you.
And Mayor, briefly, just so for the public, Orange County Fire Authority is completely different. Right? Not that you guys aren't good. That isn't the... No, just from a financing perspective, it comes straight out of property taxes, because we're structural fire fund out of the old Orange County bankruptcy and all that, so.
But to your point, we're not that way with the sheriffs, and so it's kind of like the cash contract cities with the
Yep.
OCFA, where the cash
is true.
contract cities end up taking a lot of the burden
Yep,
on budgetary issues. And so we're kind of in that position with the sheriff's department.
and
where
everybody is, that's a city.
Everybody, there is no
there
structural.
are no such thing as a property tax,
There's no-
even unincorporated?
No, well, unincorporated is under jurisdiction of the county.
Supervisors.
So they have that's a mandated service responsibility. Although, I think, doesn't California Highway Patrol have mandated responsibilities for certain roads in the unincorporated? So they have different issues in the unincorporated that we don't really want to deal with.
All right. Let's move on to the next item. Our next item of the new business is the approval of the master agreement for provision of animal care services with the County of Orange for the period of June 1st, 2026 through May 31st, 2026. And approval of the 26 to 27 OC Animal Care Notice of Intent. Staff, please give your report.
Thank you. This is interesting because in 2016, I was on the other side and negotiated for this agreement with the cities. That time, we negotiated a 10-year agreement, which included two elements, basically a master contract for services and a secondary agreement which paid for the new shelter in Tustin. So we cobbled that together and we paid for it. Now we're here at the end of that 10-year agreement. The new shelter is no longer as new, it's 10 years old, it's paid for, our contribution is completed as of June this year. However, the master agreement is over, so now we sort of, where do we go in the future? So the contract cities, there are, I forget how many, 14 cities that contract with the county, and the city managers formed a committee. I was one of those that we negotiated with them. So instead of a 10-year agreement, we negotiated a 5-year master agreement with them. And this is to provide services. The costs there are very differently allocated than the sheriff. They're allocated based on your service requirements. In other words, how much shelter time, how much shelter days you use, how many field visits you have, those kinds of things, and then, how much veterinary services, so et cetera. So what we did is we have a 5-year agreement. The key changes from the prior agreement, it's basically the original care agreement carried forward without the requirement to pay extra for the shelter. So our costs are going down. The 50-some-odd thousand we had to pay over the years is no longer built in, so we will have a reduction in that. A 5-year contract. The other thing is, the way they've been billing us is they bill us quarterly, and in that quarterly billing, it's always based on it's based on an arbitrary number based on the field services visits, et cetera. Well, what we said is, and then at the end, they hit you up with this true up, which is always awful to get because you're like, where are we going to be? You don't know. So what we did, and what we did is we negotiated so there's a stabilization of smoothing. In other words, they're going to charge us at the estimated rate, and true up charges in the spring. So in other words, if we're over or under, we're going to be able to measure where we are during the year. They're also going to provide us monthly results, et cetera, of where we are. So then we also negotiated because there are cities that now want to join the animal shelter, and there's capacity to expand down there. If you've been down there on the campus, they've got room to build and do things down there. So there are opt-in provisions because now I don't want to pay for them as a contract. We've already paid our infrastructure bill. We shouldn't have to pay for somebody else. So we've created a sort of opt-in structure for that, and it's a requirement that the cities get a choice of saying, no, we don't want something, or we do want the contracting cities. So that's the master agreement. As part of that master agreement, they have to, again, much like the sheriff, give us an estimate of what our costs are going to be for the coming year. So they'll do this for 5 years. So their costs are going up a whopping $400 from the estimate for this year. So we're very accurate. The reason it's so close to prediction is because we have over a 90% licensure rate. So animals that are picked up are returned to the owners. Owners pay impound fees or whatever they have to, so we don't get charged for those. So that's been really helpful. So we have like a 1% increase, and that's primarily because of medical supplies and CPI expenses for food, et cetera. So we're in very good shape compared from year to year on them. I meet regularly with them, and we alternate in person and down there with them, and I'm part of the city manager oversight committee, or whatever you want to call it, with them. So I'm very much in tune with it. So this year's agreement will be $43,000, $700, and it was $43,200 in the notice of intent last year. So it's in change. It's 400 and some odd change difference. So it's very minimal, significant change. And again, I would recommend approval. Our numbers are based on a notice of intent, meaning that's what they think they're going to spend. But if you have no animals picked up, and we typically have coyote responses and things like wild animal issues that they have to deal with here. But if we have no animals picked up, or they return their owners and the owners pay everything, then our costs are going to go down. So we could be well under the 43,000. If you have, the worst case scenario is you have a hoarding incident where somebody goes in and they have to spend extra dollars because they're going in and cleaning out 150 cats or dogs or something, some turtles or whatever else. That's an expense that we would bear as ourselves. So hopefully we don't have any hoarders in the city, and we have in the past. There have been issues. So we're optimistic that we won't have that, but I would recommend approval, and I can answer any questions.
Council, do you have any questions of staff? No. Steve, is there anyone who is present or wrote in from the public that would like to comment on this item?
No.
Okay. No. Thank you. Second? Any second? Okay, thank you. Let's vote.
Passes by a 5-0 vote. Thank you.
Our next item of new business is the approval of the agreement with OCY Management for Senior Transportation Services and OCTA SMP Service Plan Update. Staff, please give the staff report.
So I will, Alyssa and Lee have worked on this primarily, so I'm going to let her take the lead and take a deep drink of water and let her have this one.
Thank you, Steve. So for our senior mobility program, our contract is coming up this July 30th. It will expire with California Yellow Cab, which is now known as OCY Management. Their cars still look like California Yellow Cab, but internally they're known as OCY Management. So we went out to bid. We received one and only one bidder, which was OCY Management. And as a result of their bid, their rates have gone up significantly, which they don't really have much competition, so it's understandable. But our program has been very popular since the past couple years, maybe since COVID, and people have been using it for all sorts of different types of trips and categories and everything like that. So this item, we're looking to approve not only the contract with OCY Management, but also to adjust our service plan with OCTA, and that is adjusting the mileage of the trips and also the trip types. So that is changing the trip types to be more focused towards medical transportation for like government, and then also for government. So the types of trips would now be, instead of being open for literally anything, to now senior center, which they are allowed to use the Orange Senior Center, nutrition, medical, nutrition, they can go to the grocery store, so they want to go to Ralph's and pick up groceries, they are more than welcome to, and medical. And then we also added government, which that service they're allowed to go to, for example, they can come here, come to a city council meeting, or if they need to go to Social Security, they can do those types of things. So does anyone have any questions?
My neighbor, who was abusing this horribly, and these are my words, not yours, will that be now not able to do that because of this new deal?
They will be allowed to go under these restrictions, 8 one-way trips per month per residence, which that per residence was a change that we had already made before, and they will only be allowed to go up to 6 miles compared to currently they can go 15 miles.
Okay, good.
So that is a
So
little
keep in
more
mind,
restricted.
when we say what we're going to reimburse, it doesn't prohibit them from getting in and going 30 miles. They're just going to pay the difference. All right, that's the reality. So we are not saying you don't have transportation. We're just saying what we're going to pay for is subsidized. And that's based on our allocation from OCTA. So we have a limited allocation. We do not put general fund monies into this. I think every city in the county is going through the same situation, where the service amounts are less and less.
So there's still no way, if someone's running a business out of their home and they're using it as their personal delivery,
No,
there's no way to stop that,
no way that would happen.
because that's what's happening.
Delivery, how?
Right,
They
so they're-
have to be in the car.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, we're limiting the types of trips.
Okay.
Because right now we're seeing a lot of like personal care, which that could be anything.
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
want to more have it be medical, as like a certified medical
Years
facility.
ago, it was called the Senior Non-Emergency Medical Program, and
SNEMT,
that's what it was. It transitioned because they had more money. So you remember probably in 2018, we were underspending. So we had to put stuff out in the feeder to get people signed up. Well, people figured it out, and it was a good deal. It's great that it's being used, but we want it used for the purposes. I mean, we don't want them to go to Fashion Island to go shopping. That's not the intent of the funding here. The funding is get them to doctor's appointments, get them to senior centers, get them to pick up groceries or pharmacy here. I mean, that's what the whole gist of what the program is from our perspective, and we're seeking council approval of that.
Okay, go
There's
ahead.
been a lot of debate. It's not like we want to cut services off to seniors, so we're not being cold-hearted. We're trying to deal with what monies we have and the realities we face.
Yes.
Well, and there are many other pathways for seniors in our community to get other services as well, not just through this senior non-emergency medical transportation, which it's not called that now, except for down in South County, they still use that phrase. But so they have until the end of June, right, to use it how they have been, and then the end of June. So July 1st then is when it's going to take effect. And everyone has to register, but what is our plan to notifying all the participants that this change is coming so they don't have a really rude awakening or recognize that they'll be funded for 6 miles, but after that, they're on their own?
They're all registered with us, so that the benefit is we have all their information, so we'll be contacting them subsequent to the
Like
council
phone call,
We'll be
email?
notifying them in writing and
Okay.
of all that stuff. So, we will notify them. Sometimes it's not necessarily them, it's their family relationships or whatever that are helping order stuff and we'll notify whoever's registered and whatever information we have multiple times between now and the end of June.
Can I make a suggestion that when you do notify them, to let them know, also please provide the Office on Aging 211 number, so then that way they can perhaps use some of the other services that are available to them.
Yes. Yeah, we have that also added onto our senior mobility page currently, and then we wanted to include that in the letter. And then also our frequent riders, we want to call them in addition to also mail just everyone that's registered as part of a program a letter. But then the people that are frequent users for the past few months, that we'll call them and make sure that they received our letter.
Your neighbor.
And they're aware.
Your neighbor.
So the increase in their rates, is that, do you think that that's comparable with other providers, or do you think that they're just kind of penalizing us because we have somebody that's not using it correctly?
The rates have nothing to do with how people are using it. They're happy to have someone use their services, and
So the question is, the provider's charging us more but the reality is we don't have bids from other providers, so we can't really
Can't
say
even,
what other.
there's no comparable data.
There's no
Okay.
comparable, so it's like, this is it.
All right.
Our option is to say we're not going to use them and go out to bid and get one bid again, and they can probably go up in rates if we want to. So
Yeah.
They know it's sole source.
Go ahead.
I think we're all familiar with the price of gas, so moving the mileage reduction is definitely prudent. Second thing is OCY actually prepared for this? You just hit your 6 mile limit, and so they've got that all in place then, right?
yes, I've
Go ahead.
I've discussed with them that we were going to be cutting back the number of trips and also the mileage. And they've said basically it's good to have up to 15 in our contract, since it's a 3-year contract and 2 years we can extend, because if we ever in any case wanted to expand at any point, it's good to have these rates locked in now, because if we were to add them later, it could be more expensive. So this would be ideal, just to do this as
I
it
can
is.
add to that some of the South County providers already have limits on how far you can go. So it's not unfamiliar.
And some cities are like,
Yeah.
Fullerton, I was talking to somebody in Fullerton telling me that they're contemplating significant reductions in what they can do there.
Yeah.
So,
It's not uncommon.
It's very, 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 we're consistent with other, and we're working with OCTA as well, because they monitor and audit our program every year. So they monitor our records to make sure we're tracking everything.
Looks like St. Joseph's and the Providence and all the medical buildings is 5.3 miles, so it's within the
There's a
That's
symmetry
why
there.
they chose 6 miles.
I'm just pointing out how smart Alyssa is.
She's very smart.
Very good. Steve, is there anyone who is present or wrote in from the public that would like to comment on this item?
No, I would encourage you, though, when we send notices out, you may hear from some of the participants saying, wait a minute, can you help? So it's good that you all are getting apprised of it, and I think that's something that's important, that you understand the issue, because you may hear from people saying, wait a minute, I got this free last year. So,
Yeah, I think we are all ready to vote. Any motion? Someone gonna make a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay. Second, let's
I'll
vote.
second.
Good. Let's vote.
passes by a 5-0 vote. Thank you.
Our next item of new business is approval for repairs of the council chamber automatic doors. Staff, please give staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This is strategically placed in front of item 16 because item 16 addresses the facility use, and 15 is intended to show there are costs involved in facility use and repair. So we have, as you aware, automatic doors here that are supposed, for handicapped access, are supposed to be hold open and whatever. Well, what's happened with this specific door is it's got a lever where you can push and stay, it opens and closes. Well, when people put a sandbag and keep it open and it's still locked in, the motor keeps running, trying to shut it, and it can't shut it. So the motor is burnt out and has to be repaired and that kind of thing. So I'll let Alyssa talk about the specifics of it. But this is something we've talked about. I mentioned we've talked about different vendors and gone through the process. BAR is by far the best that we are going to get. And I'll let Alyssa talk about what's actually have to be done.
Yeah, so basically what Steve said, the motor needs to be replaced, and we also need a new button for outside. I don't know what happened to our button or when it disappeared, but to press it and to be able to come in if you needed that, it's gone. Yes, there did. So that might be how.
Handicapped accessible is pretty hard if you can't get out there and accessible.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult.
You can see there was a little mark on the left-hand side. So we definitely need that fixed, or a new one. And the one inside doesn't always work perfectly. And then the motor doesn't work. And Bars who's serviced our doors, and this is the model and everything that would work for our current door without having to replace the entire door. So this is what we would recommend doing to get it all fixed.
Okay, council, do you have any question of staff?
I have a question. So that was my question is, because the picture looked like different doors. So we're not replacing the doors, just the
No,
motor. So the
just the mo-
$7,800 is the motor
Motor
and,
plus the switches.
and the switch.
buttons.
Okay.
And the labor and everything, all of it.
I have a-
It could, just when you use it, don't put the sandbags on the door, or at least turn that thing off, so the motor doesn't keep running.
I see you're looking at me, Mr. Franks. I do get here early Thursday morning to set it up for Rotary, and I do flip the switch and I put the sandbag on this side. Is it possible to, because the reason is it's so hot in here
Right.
in the morning that we need some cool air.
That goes to the question that you had, do we need to put thermostat cover? Yes, that's, Councilman Jones asked, why do we have covers in our facility? We'll talk about that later, but yes.
But is it possible to make both doors able to stay open without the use of a sandbag, and we get rid of the sandbags?
We would have to put a motorized thing in there, or have to adjust
It's a
the
big
motor.
expense.
It would be a lot more expensive to install that.
Can we
Probably
add? Can
involve
we
a new
add
door.
just
I could talk and see.
Can we add just a door? What are they
Foot
called?
peg?
Yeah, a foot peg.
We can talk to them and we'll see.
I mean, that would be, and then we get rid of the sandbag, and then we don't have the problem. Just put it on one of the doors that.
Why don't
The
you
one
put it on the
that-
door
without
that
the
doesn't
motor.
have the motor?
Yeah, the foot peg on the door without the motor.
We can talk to them and see what we can do on that.
Yeah.
And I want to point out that I pointed out the problem. I did not cause the problem.
That was the
For the
same
rec-
day he called about the lights being broken out front too, so it was after Rotary had been here.
and you have video proof that it wasn't me who broke the light.
I've been here 8 years. It never broke till you got here.
All right. Steve, what Councilmember Frackleton suggests, a leg. Do we need to approve that, or would that just be okay?
We'll negotiate, we'll talk to them, and I'll have Alyssa talk to them in the morning when we, contact them and see what their recommendation is. They maybe have something that is expensive, and I'll consider that with your approval, part of the motion, that we need to address that.
Okay, so should we add that into the motion, since what we are voting
That would
is
be
the
preferred if you want to do
7,800?
that. Just add that we pursue an inexpensive alternative to allow us to keep that other door open without sandbags.
I move exactly what the city manager has stated.
All right. Do-
second.
Do I hear, okay, thank you. There's a second, let's vote.
I'm pressing.
Passes by a 5-0 vote.
Great. Our next item of new business is approval of the facility use agreement updates. Staff?
So again, this is Alyssa, but it was, again, you see where we're going here because we just set the stage. We have expenses. This building, we have, in COVID years, we installed those of you who remember, we didn't have the big camera, screens. We had a screen you had to pull down, and we had a thing mounted in the ceiling over here that was the movie thing that people pushed with a stick to start it. So we upgraded and we did that, but that's a considerable expense. So we have put a plexiglass box, et cetera, around here. There are costs that we have associated with it. CJPIA, our insurance agency, came out and they do an annual inspection, and they talked to Alyssa, and I'll tell you what the results are. But basically, they recommended that we tighten up our use facility agreements and help us address some of the concerns we have. And to the thing about it's hot in here, people at night get cold, they turn on the heat and they leave here and they don't change the thermostat, and and we like to keep it at 72 to 74 range, and it gets changed a lot. So that's why you see the boxes, but people have learned how to get into the boxes without keys. So it's kind of a challenge, but we do have, that was a discussion I think Councilwoman Jones had with me, do we really need to restrict not touching to the thermostat? Well, yes, that's to our point. Our heat was running all night a lot of times, but Alyssa, why don't you go ahead?
Yes, so after we came in one day and after Mayor Pro Tem Frackleton brought up the door that was broken, and we also had a light that was broken outside, not related to the room, but it was just quite a day.
That was bringing you a plate of food at the time. I just want to point out.
Possibly, and we...
People are so defensive tonight,
Yes.
aren't they?
Yeah, we removed the sandbag.
Put my finger on it.
And we have some tables that are broken and just things haven't been used properly. We wanted to just go through, and we had our monthly meeting that we have with JPIA, and we just brought up the whole facilities use thing. And our person, she said, oh, well, we could look at your contract that you guys have and make any suggestions. So she went through it and had suggestions tightening up just things related to insurance. And then also we had some other things that we wanted to add in just while we were making changes. And then the ones that are highlighted in the staff report are such as they wanted to put were like the no alcohol policy, no smoking requirement. Some days we may just smell it lingering here. Not that we necessarily think that people are, but just to make sure it is definitely emphasized. Also, a 72-hour minimum cancellation notice. We've had people recently, as of within the last week or two, tell us morning of or just not even show up that we thought the room was reserved and they're not here. And then maybe they want a refund or what have you. And then fees also paid at the time of reservation. We've had people making reservations, reserving the date. Other people want to reserve, and they've just been so used to our many, many years of them paying when they check out the keys, and we just want to have them pay when they make the reservation. It is just set in stone that they have it, and it's guaranteed. Then also reservation cancellation. If they want to cancel, they can cancel 7 days in advance, and then a $25 fee will be assessed from the original fee if it's later. And then also with the government code 3207, just no political events can be here. This was just a standard thing when we were comparing to other cities. Basically, every other city had this in their community room rentals, and that was not in ours.
So real quick, that political events does not include the forum that the foundation runs. It includes a campaign event where somebody is running for office and says, I want to have a campaign, a fundraiser, or those types of events. So we're not precluding forums or those informational like League of Women Voters or foundation events or Rotary events or those kinds of things are not precluded from that.
Yeah, legally, you can't use public facilities for private political purposes. You can in some cities with larger facilities, as long as you charge them full rate, right? But a lot of cities don't even deal with it, and they don't allow political events in public facilities.
We also have the voting box right outside doors, so that's sort of problematic here as well. So that's sort of, from a campaign perspective, it's real problematic, so it's better to say no. But there is a distinction. I know we've had a discussion. Before we go on, I know that Councilwoman Jones has suggestions just about ordering some of the numbers.
Yeah, my suggestion was to move item 6 behind 7 and 8 under G miscellaneous, because you basically are talking about canceling a reservation before you talk about how a reservation is completed. And so I just felt it made more sense to talk about how you complete the reservation before you talk about cancellations. So that was my only change.
So we'll make that change with part of the, if it's approved by the council today.
I have a question. When you say clean up trash, you're not asking them to take the trash out of the receptacles, you're just saying
No.
clean off the tables.
We regularly come in here and there are half-full cups of
Yeah. No,
coffee.
I
or-
agree. Just want to make sure
Yeah,
that,
no, we're not talking about, we have services that are clean, this is cleaned twice a day by outside services that we bring in to clean. So that's in the midday and then at night after the meeting. So, and we started doing that COVID, and I think that's been very prudent and a good thing, because I think it's, clean spills on the carpet and those things is what we do. We're talking about picking up plates and picking up, whatever debris might be there. Sometimes it's pamphlets and things that are just left around.
yeah, no, just it says removal of all trash. So that's why I just was like, oh, are you having them actually take out the trash?
No, trash meaning put it into the trash can. We also put a provision in here about, we have stuff back there by bifocals from probably 2020. If you want an extra pair, they're in our safe, we keep them. I think we have provisions to address some of that because we're collecting, we look like a Goodwill in some of our sections of stuff, but people leave stuff behind, but they come in looking for things. So we're trying to clean up the facility use and make it as amenable to residents, so when you walk in, they have a really nice, clean facility. A good example with the Halloween Fest, I know sometimes they bring in hay bales for pictures and things. Well, that's the kind of thing where I don't think we should be responsible for vacuuming up the hay when they brought it in. So that's the kind of stuff that we would expect cleaned up. So when they bring in hay bales and there's hay all over the place, that's the kind of thing I would expect to be cleaned up, and that's what we're talking about. Which they do, by the way. I'm not saying they don't, they do. I've seen Jordan look for vacuums and bring his own one time, so.
Yeah. Any other question from the council?
Quick comment.
Okay, go ahead.
If you're talking about doing something about the tables, I would recommend not going with the locking casters, because people don't realize they lock, and then they try to move them, and it just destroys the caster, or we know that half of them are being pulled out. So I would just go with no locking. They don't really move on the carpet anyway. My recommendation.
Okay, Steve, is there anyone who is present or wrote in from the public that would like to comment on this item?
No.
Okay. Do I hear any entertainment motions?
I'll move it.
Second.
Let's vote.
That's by a 5-0 vote, thank you.
Our next new business is the approval of the construction contract with Tropical Plaza Nursery, Inc. for repairs to the existing DG Trail. Staff, please give staff report.
Thank you. Every year, we go back and try and address our DG where we have erosion issues and things that are happening along our things, so we identify. I know we received some concerns about what's happening on Santiago. So in there, you'll see, this is the contract we went out to bid. Chilati Engineering, Orange Blue, and Tropical were the three bids, and the low bid was Tropical. We'd like to get this approved so we can have the work done prior to the run that's happening in May, early May. So we've gone out to bid, and the recommendations for 31,000 are $31,000 that we move over into reserve from to this to cover the $29,000 contract and administration of that contract for about approximately $31,000.
Any question from the council? No? Okay. Steve, is there anyone who is present or wrote in from the public that would like to comment on this item?
No, Mayor.
Okay. I would like to entertain any motion.
I'll move it.
Any second? Let's vote.
Passes by a 5-0 vote. Thank you.
Our next item of new business is the amendment to the MV5 engineering contract for PRA responses. Staff, please give staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. As you recall, in May of 2025, the City Council approved a subdivision of a 94,000 square foot lot up on Mesa Drive. As part of that, it was divided into 3 parcels. The project has since been moving forward with the applicant submitting various items and moving forward at various stages of implementation. As part of that process, we have received a number of public records requests over the last, over 30 at this point, we received requests. And by law, we need to respond to them. It's a very appropriate means for the public to get information, so we have supported and trying to respond. We have 10 days to respond. And if it's not responded in 10 days, we have to give a time frame within 10 days when we will get it done. It has to be reasonable. So that being said, it is the types of documentation and things that are required are largely very specific regarding engineering and those types of things, which you can't generally, Alyssa and myself are probably not capable of pulling up a lot of documents or pulling that together. So right now, our city engineer, who we have a small department, we're paying her $167 an hour, and she's responding to these. That includes all her other duties, and she's a part-time employee as contract employee. That being said, my concern is we have a number of other projects. For instance, the street project that are going on, the DG that we just talked about, et cetera, are going on. So in order to sort of make sure that we aren't losing ground, which we are, right at the edge here, I contracted NV5, who works with the documents, et cetera, is working with them, and said, what can you do? And they said, look, we can provide somebody, and you have a resume for $100 an hour, so it's cheaper, and it remove her hours from having to pull. She can tell them where to pull and pull the documents. So legally, we can continue to be responsive, but we're also not, it's a cheaper way to continue moving forward, respond to our documents at the same time, allow us to get all the other work done in engineering that needs to go on. So for instance, every ADU that's approved, every process has to be, plan checked and et cetera, and reviewed, et cetera, from grading perspective, et cetera. So that being said, just to pull the documents, we've spent, since we started, January, I started realizing how many we were getting, and I asked them to start recording it. So we've, in hours of her time at 167, she spent over 45 hours, about $7,800 worth of her time to do that. So that being said, I can reduce the cost if I, get this other person to do it, and allows me to continue to be responsive to the bids as legally, to the PRAs as legally required, and we continue to move forward with the work that needs to be done for the engineering services for the city. So our recommendation is to have it, the proposed amendment, we cannot charge, by the way, unless we provide hard documents. The law does not let us provide to charge anybody who's applying for PRA, so that's not an issue, and anyone can submit application or public records requests. It's our responsibility to be as transparent and give it to them in the timeframes. So our goal is to continue. The $10,000 is just an estimate. It's an as needed. If we don't need it, we don't use it. It's $100 an hour, and we have monies in our budget that will cover the $10,000 if needed, that unallocated, and we'll carry forward a balance into next year. But in other words, this allows us to continue to meet our state mandates, provide information to be transparent as we can, and at the same time to do it in the most efficient way possible. So my recommendation is that you allow me to approve a contract amendment with our NV5 to have a permit technician assist in gathering the document responses and I'm available to answer any questions. We do have a public speaker as well.
Okay, council, any questions of staff?
I have a question. So we're being asked to approve a $10,000 increase to the MV5 engineering contract. And the $7,600 that we've spent so far is that all for one household,
It's for one project.
one project? Is it all being pulled by the same person, requested by the same person?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have, so if we've already spent the 7,600 and you're asking or require, or we need to do another 10,000, you're anticipating future PRA requests from this?
I can't say for certain, but if there's a trend and I'm being responsive to the trend, I need to be available to respond by law. So I want to be able to respond by law in the most efficient way possible, in the cheapest way possible. So I can't guarantee, there may be no more expenses, but we still have six that are pending that we're working on. So at that point, yes, there is some expenses going forward. However, I don't know what else happens, and I just need to be available and have a mechanism in place to sort of, as I mentioned to several, to keep the trains running on time.
So the 6 you have pending are all from the same
Yes.
individual?
Yes.
And it's all public, correct? So are we allowed to know who it is? Who is requesting $7,600 of public records requests?
Catherine McBride.
Okay. Okay. I have questions for city attorney, but I think I'll wait to see if there's any other discussion.
So we can't charge for the public records request unless there's a hard copy given, and we charge for the copy. But is there ever a limit that gets reached? Is it unlimited? I mean, could I come in tomorrow and ask for 52 public records requests and do that again the next day and the next day and the next day? Or is there, at some point, there's some kind of limit?
There's no legal limit as to the number of requests a person can do. At some point in time, cities run out of documents to produce, so you can just say, look at previous request. But yeah, there is no limit. If somebody were to come in and say, I want a copy of every document in City Hall, you can ask that they be specific and identify specific categories. That's what you can do.
Well, I have a procedural question. Is there a council member that should not be part of the discussion, or I don't know what the law says?
Nope.
Okay.
There's no conflict. This isn't a conflict
Okay.
of interest.
And then I guess my next question is, from all the public records requests, has there been any corrective action that has taken place as a result of these public records requests? Like, has there been any corrective actions? Has the city said, oh, so sorry, we did this wrong, corrective action?
When I posed that question, I was told no.
Okay, so there's not been any result of the public records requests changing the flow pathway of the project?
No.
Okay. Can I ask the city attorney, or you want me to wait? Okay. If PRA activity from one household is costing taxpayers thousands of dollars, and it seems like we're going to be potentially approving more, is there any mechanism, legal or procedural, to prevent the burden from escalating financially to the point where we want to be coherent, we want to make sure we're compliant and good governance and provide all the public records requests, but are there any safeguards or anything that a city can do to say, other than saying, please refer back to the last one? What can the city do to kind of stop the bleeding, if you will, from costing the taxpayers? This is taxpayer money. There's nothing we can do. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Any other question from council? Otherwise, I would like to ask a question. No? Here, Steve, in your report, you mentioned you started to track January 2026. And so far, it's about 45 and a half hours, which costs the city $7,600. When did all this PRA started?
I believe it was probably spring of last year, 2025.
So since 2025, we did not track.
No, we did not.
So in other words, to me, we don't know how much money we spent last year from the engineering, but just in this quarter alone, we spent $7,600. And from our council member, Miles had mentioned, it results to no corrections, approval, etc. It is just simply every citizen's right to request PRA as many as they would like. And I also would like to point out a comment, this is not a question. This $7,600 is only tracking our part-time engineering fee. We have not actually tracked the staff time, our attorney time. So all this is already way above. If we track all the professional time and resource and money, is way beyond $7,600. I mean, certainly our attorney, I don't know how much is your hourly rate, but it's...
Sadly, I'm on a flat rate, so you don't get charged anything more. So I'm...
But certainly takes time out of your busy
Well,
schedule.
yeah, I mean, I answer legal questions for the city, so yeah.
I have one more question when you're
Go
done.
ahead.
In your experience as city attorney, when one person is amassing a large number of public record requests, documents, what's the end result, or what is the trend? What do you see? Like what should we? I don't want to say what should we expect, but I mean like what's the trend? What is your experience tell you?
Doesn't really tell me anything. I mean, it could mean, people want information, which is their right. It could mean someone is getting information for other purposes, either business-related, litigation-related. I have no idea what's going to happen in
So
the
it
future
could-
in this case.
It
I don't
could
know.
mean someone's preparing for a lawsuit.
It could mean one of 500 things.
Thank you.
I have a question for staff. This is this is the first time I ever heard of PRA. My question for the staff is, particularly this PRA, is it unusual, or maybe I should reframe my question? How many PRA do we typically have? Not just say in a quarter of a year, because right now we already spent $7,600 in one quarter for one particular PRA. I'm just curious, for other PRAs, how many do we typically receive?
Maybe 2 or 3 a month, and those will typically be things like a real estate agent will ask for all the code enforcement claims that have happened over the last quarter or whatever, or some firm is looking for anybody who's installed solar, so it might be a business. So we probably get 2 to 3 a month on a normal basis, but those are non-specific. Those are sort of fishing expeditions in a lot of ways, I would say. What do you say, Alyssa?
And Mayor, just so you know, not so much in Villa Park, even though the ADA one is going to be a pain.
We have not received the ADA.
You have one? Oh, Jesus, we have. All the other cities have. So in other cities, I mean, I got one today, and so I get a PRA. City clerk is like, okay, city clerk, collect documents. She sends me a link with all the documents. I send them to my litigation support / IT people. I have them put them in a certain database called Disco so I can look at them quick. Like one today I got was 21,000 documents, right? A couple weeks ago, I got one that had 80,000 documents that theoretically all have to be reviewed, because you got to make sure there's not confidential information, social security numbers, whatever, or attorney-client information if it's a sensitive case. So in larger cities, PRAs consume hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars of both legal and staff time review. That's just the reality of the law, and
The
if,
county, as my experience there for multiple years, they have what they call a custodian of records and a whole department, probably about 10 people that pull documents, but they've got 17,000 employees and they're doing a lot of different things. So it hits every entity differently, and I'll be very honest. So for instance, another experience I had was, you'll remember the discussion of the potential airport at Marine Corps El Toro. I was there, and there were hundreds of PRAs weekly about that on both sides requesting this and that. So every agency, every issue will draw different types of things, like Todd's saying. So it really varies, but our experience is 2 to 3 a month on a regular basis here. And those have varied again. There was at one point where I had a council member submit a PRA on another council member. So, sometimes it just varies on the issues.
I certainly understand that. I think I'm asking the question is, typically, we don't deal, we are a small city. I appreciate, Todd, you mentioned large city or the county, they deal with a lot more, and they have a specific department to deal with PRA. However, we are a small city. For me, as a council member, I treat our financial or limited amount of finance very carefully. And I truly want to understand and believe we spend our money properly. At the end of the day, it is all of our money. As Council Member Mile mentioned, this is our taxpayers' money. So I'm just very curious about all this PRA from one particular project, and it yields nothing. Unfortunately, obviously, as our attorney had mentioned, there's nothing we can stop. I just hope now it is in the light of the public that we can really be conscious about how much money and time from our staff that we are spending on. Personally, I certainly hope there's an end, and also we don't have to continue to produce the same thing. And from what I understand, staff mentioned, share with me, each PRA within has 10 to 20 items that is being requested and is multiple times repeat. Is that correct?
I don't want to say they repeat because each is going to vary. And again, I want to be careful here because my goal is to be efficient, and that's why I'm recommending that. So I'm not discouraging people submitting public records requests. I want to do it the most efficient and legally responsible way I can do. So that's my goal. Whoever submits them, and they have the right, and I want to be completely transparent, and I want to comply with the law. So I think what I'm trying to do is be conscious of our cost as well. But I think we can do some things here, and that's what I'm trying to do, is to be responsive in a cost-efficient way.
I certainly appreciate that, and I agree with your philosophy here. Personally, I certainly like to pay $100 versus $167 per hour. So I think our council.
My last comment, and I appreciate the analogies that were presented. However, what we are now being asked is not similar at all in any of what the conversation has gone to, is we are actually going to ask to increase funding for a contract because we have a PRA request by one household that is, in my opinion, again, not saying, I totally agree with Public Records Act requests, good governance. Absolutely, anyone that feels the need to have a PRA, absolutely do it. I support that 100%. But just for the record, and so that the residents understand, this is taxpayer money, and we have to now go out for another part-time individual from MV5 to be able to make sure that none of our residents, so now we're impacting other residents' projects or other projects in the city because of the dedicated time that the PRA requests are taxing on our current part-time engineers. So as part of the public record, I think that's important for the residents to understand and know. I appreciate, Steve, you being able to recognize that this isn't probably going to stop and that we need to be prepared ahead of time. But I also think it's important that the public understands that this is not a whole bunch of multiple different peoples. This is one household doing this. That's my comment.
Any other question from the council of the
We
staff?
do have a public speaker.
Okay, yeah, that will be next, since you already mentioned it, go ahead.
Catherine McBride.
Good evening. You all know me and you know the project. Pardon? Okay. Tonight you are considering hiring a vendor to manage the volume of public records requests regarding the Mesa project, which you probably have to admit is a little unique than other public record requests you've had because of what's going on with this project and how it's affecting 5 different families in the neighborhood. The request of public records is certainly not out of curiosity, but out of a necessity. These requests are being generated are a direct result of the city engineer's failure to protect private property rights by unilaterally gifting 2 private developers, Carver and Tree Dunn, the right to freely drain on multiple properties, there's 5 properties, without permission or easements, claiming no consent is required from any of the homeowners. So when your backyard suddenly becomes a free drainage basin for 2 developers, you tend to ask questions, and I think you would all not like that happening in your backyard. Many other irregular accommodations are being made for this developer, which do not stop at drainage. Records reveal recently that a 10-foot retaining wall was constructed without active permits, critical inspections, or sign-offs. We have serious safety concerns regarding a structural wall of this magnitude being built with 0 oversight. This regulatory bypass puts our property in physical danger as well as other neighbors. We are now forced to play detective to protect our property. Much of the requested information that should be in the files for this type of project is non-existent, including submittals and inspection reports. Information has been requested of conversations, correspondence between the city and maybe the engineer. Nothing is available, no records. Nothing about the drainage. They've had no discussions apparently about draining on neighboring properties. There's no correspondence in the records that we're getting. So if you look at public record requests, a lot of the information is non-existent. So I don't know how 45 hours worth of putting together stuff has come to 45 hours. If it's basically the city engineer is costing the taxpayers money by making accommodations for the developers. And if the building codes were enforced, there would not be a paperwork problem. It would not exist. I don't know if you all have seen the green pipe towering on Mesa Drive, which is directly terminating in my backyard and is a physical monument to the failure of oversight. This lack of code enforcement and apparent favoritism towards the developers at the expense of the Villa Park residents has necessitated the request for further records. And as long as Villa Park residents are deprived of their property rights to favor developers, these requests for documentations will continue. So I urge you to look at the cause of the requests and not just the cost of managing them. Thank you.
Thank you for the public comments. Any last comments from the council? Okay.
Well, I have a comment. I would just like, for the record, to be reminded that I was never in favor of the project in the first place, and I was the only dissenting voice on that project. That's it.
Okay. Any other comments?
Second.
Okay, let's vote.
That passes by a 4-0 vote with Councilman McBride abstaining.
Our next item of new business in the Group Home Task Force Charter Amendment. Staff, please give staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Last year in July, in July of 2024, we're coming up on 2 years, the council approved the concept of a 10-member group home task force in Villa Park, which consists of basically an advisory body that would work at that time because of some concerns regarding sober living and group homes that were appeared to be proliferating in the city. And we created that. In August, the membership was of that year. The membership was approved with each council member offering 2 members. We started meeting regularly and have met fairly regularly since then till last May. So a year ago, we had our last full regular meeting. Since that time, attendance has not only been an issue, it has been a paralyzing effect because we've been unable to get a quorum for the last 3 meetings starting that would have been November, January, and just a few weeks ago. To the extent that our last meeting of the 10 members, 2 showed up, and myself included. Myself is the 3rd. So we sat around and had a very good conversation for a few minutes, but we could conduct no business. So that being said, the members who do participate, and we have 4 members who are very regular participants, have indicated that maybe we need to restructure the committee, downsize it so we don't end up with everybody's schedule trying to make that. But we do have a need for this, and the whole point of this is trying to get some community input. The types of things we want to talk about are the group home ordinances and things like that. There's legislation. We belong as part of a countywide committee, CASLAR, that we participate in. So we'd like to have those continued discussions with them. So that being said, the chair of the committee, former Councilman Fasenelli, has indicated that she strongly supports, and as the members are participating, the ones that we recommended, and those are the top 4 participants that are listed. We recommended those 4 be there. And we added another one because somebody who has expressed interest in being involved has also expressed interest. So we're suggesting that a membership of 5, you don't want to have 4 because if there's a 2-2, you don't get anything accomplished. And so we want to have an odd membership number. Those 4 are regular participants and very active participants, and I want to commend them because they've made extra efforts to be there. And the ones that have missed the 2 of them had missed 1 meeting apiece, and that's it of all the meetings we've had. So we would like to reconstruct it and have us amend the resolution and allow us to meet a minimum of 2 times a year, but more if necessary. But then reduce the membership, which allow us to get there. If we have a 10-member committee and we can't get a quorum in a year, I don't think that committee is effectively operating and providing any service to the city. So it's my recommendation that happen, that we reconstruct it and redefine the membership. So I'm available to answer any questions.
Council member, any question of the staff?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sounds great. I'm all for it. I've been champing at the bit to get that task force to give us a recommendation of limiting so many group homes per X amount of 100 feet, because other cities have done it. It seems to have prevailed in the court, and it's holding. I just want to give a sense of urgency that and encourage the council, let's do this. Let's get them to give us a recommendation so we can move forward.
All right, Steve, is there anyone who is present or wrote in from the public that would like to comment on this item?
No.
Okay. See none, do I hear any motion from the council?
I'll move.
Let's vote.
Passes by a 5-0 vote. Thank you.
Now we will discuss the city manager report. We're almost there.
We're almost there. Thank you. It's a regular monthly report. I do want to report that by city ordinance, I have the authority to make administrative adjustments that allow me to, as long as it's not 25% of required rear or side yard setbacks. We had one that was approved, and it's for 18391 Jocatall, where it was a deviation of basically a side yard setback from 10 feet to 9 feet 8 inches, so 4-inch variance that I've approved. And I'm just going for the record, I have to announce this publicly. And this was, there's a wall that goes indentation, and they want to move the wall out so it's all flat along the one side. So I approved it. It's a 4-inch variance, but I need to report it for purposes of public record. So just that being said, and Caden made a point of hounding me today to make sure I reminded. But it again is at 18391 Jocatall, and it is to be consistent with the non-conforming main wall that's already there. So it just allows them to push the wall, the indentation up to it equal. So that's for the record. Otherwise, we have the council today approved the housing update, and that's important because we sent it was April 1st deadline. So incidentally, today I got an email from HCD. After 2 revisions to our submittal, we're able to have approval of that. So they're spending a lot of time on this. This is a high priority for Sacramento. But again, we're in compliance. That's the good word. So there are a lot of cities, several cities in the state. I want to say 15 or 16 have been notified that they're going to face legal action for not being in compliance, and that is pretty heavy consequences for that because they won't be allowed to approve building permits and things like that. So anyway, so credit to the council and for your continued diligence in moving forward because we have a certified housing elements. Now, I would ask Councilman McBride to stay active because the SCAG discussions are just now starting, and our RENA numbers will be coming out for the 7th element, 7th cycle, and that will be coming out, I want to say 28, 29 is when those numbers, and we are at our threshold. We've exhausted options, so I would hope that the councilman can have an active voice and be effective in communicating. Yeah, I'm holding out hope that some reason happens up there and thing. Otherwise, everything else, I would point out just for the residents that there was unfortunately an accident on this evening on Saravilla and this afternoon, Saravilla and Valley Drive. People will notice, so I don't get phone calls, that several of our the split rail fences along the trails were destroyed. So our guy Sergio was out there and he cleaned it all up. So one of you drove by and said they didn't see anything. So we did clean it up well, but it's going to be repaired. We'll work with the insurance company to make sure that's all repaired. So I just wanted people to be aware, to be cautious around there because there are some stumps there as a result of it, and that's going to have to be dealt with, et cetera. And we'll mark them and do the best we can to do that. Otherwise, that's it. I'm available to answer any question that if you have.
You have a question?
Are you able to speak about the red tagged house?
We have a resident that is on the corner, the southwest corner of Center and Santiago. I think I got it right. That has, nobody's living there, but it was at one point a vacant house. It was a sale, and a lot of work has been done. And with unpermitted work, and we've only been able to realize that when we've had complaints about it, so we went over and checked it. So we're working, it's an active code enforcement case, and it is red tagged at this point. But even during the red tagging that was even further enhanced just the other day, Monday, we have reports of work being done in evenings and weekend hours with lights on and things like that. And things are happening. We're not talking about minor stuff. We're talking about drywalling, electrical. We're talking about replacing windows and a lot of work that's real work that's being done. So it is red tagged. So I would encourage if any of the council members who live in that area see that, please take a picture and send it to us and make sure you photo date it. And we can, because that's going to happen. We've already started the finding process on this person. And they've come in and told us they're going to try and be compliant. But the evening after they told us they were going to be compliant, they're out doing it again. So
Can you explain why it's important?
There's electrical being done in the wall,
so
for instance.
that's the thing. It's not that we're trying to gotcha. It's that there's some real safety concerns.
There's electrical being in the wall that has never been inspected and is drywalled over. So we don't know what they did wiring, what kind of connections, and those kinds of things. So that's a real concern. Gaps in the wall that we knew existed no longer exist. So we don't know what's behind those types of things. So unfortunately, it's going to involve some tearing out of some of that work and exposing it. So it's some real potential safety issues This is a two-story house, and it's not the newest house. So there's a lot of work that could have been done or should be done to bring it up to code. And we're concerned about the safety, and it's not going to get a notice of occupancy at this point. It needs a lot of work, but
Yeah.
it is a safety and potential hazard. At one point, we believe that there were actually people habitating there in the evenings, whatever, just sort of stopping in there and staying, because there was an ironing board and a iron plugged into something. So it is what it is, and we are concerned about its safety, but if people do see something, council members who live in that area see something, please take a picture and let us know, because that's a violation and it's a real problem for them.
Thank you.
That's a great question. Thank you for that. And I think I don't know how long ago, but I saw deputy arrest.
So that was a
somebody for
traffic
that.
stop. That was not.
Oh.
because
Well,
I got
that was
phone-
outside of my house.
No, but this was right on their driveway, this property's driveway.
That was
There
a
was a stop
pedestrian
at my
stop. That was a stop. That was not,
Oh,
there was
okay.
nobody's been arrested or anything at that point.
Oh, 'cause
No,
I
there was something outside
Been
my
multiple
house.
along the street. Yeah. She
Oh.
called me because the lights were
Well,
flashing.
no, because
outside
my
of her
kid's
house.
like, Mom, there's cop cars outside. And I was like, well, I haven't heard anything. So, yeah, no. it was-
Okay.
That was a
Then-
traffic stop, and then there was a pedestrian that was walking that was stopped by the proactive
Gotcha.
efforts of the deputies.
So he was just, it was on their driveway, so that's why I didn't not understand that part.
Probably a safe, I mean, they're not going to arrest or deal with them in the street, so it's probably moving them to safe spot.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Any more questions for city manager? No? Okay. Now it's time for the council member meeting attendance report, starting with law enforcement advisory.
Thank you. So we met 2 weeks ago on April 14th. We started with reports from Captain Timmons and Wayne and Mary Sizell from Neighborhood Watch. But then we also reviewed the proposal on license plate readers from Axon, and the committee agreed that it is worth the potential cost savings to wait and see if grants become available from the Orange County Sheriff's Department for these cameras. If we get the cameras now and grants become available, we will not get the money retroactively. And so the committee agreed that this could be a way for us to cover all 9 intersections that we had proposed during our last proposal and our last several meetings on this topic. Whereas initially, when we kind of laid those out, we weren't able to do all of those intersections because of our budget constraints. So by waiting a little bit and seeing if we can get these grants, it could really get us everything we want for much less money. So the LEAC was in agreement on that. Axon does have significantly more security for their cameras than other providers that we were considering, and they are currently, as I believe the city manager pointed out earlier, they're currently the body-worn camera provider for the Orange County Sheriff's Department, so there would be seamless integration. And I do believe it's important for the council to be aware that if the Sheriff's Department purchases the cameras, the Sheriff's Department will own the data, not the city of Villa Park. So it is an important distinction just to kind of put it in your heads to think about, since there are cases right now developing where people are receiving traffic citations for their behavior caught on these cameras. So we can limit that sort of intrusion if we own the data, but if the Sheriff's Department owns the data, it would be up to them. So just kind of something to think about there. For e-bikes, we also discussed e-bikes and the need to follow up with OUSD on the education piece, which I did at the city schools meeting, so I'll report on that separately. And then we looked at fireworks and what has been going on in the city of Stanton with their code enforcement-based fines for fireworks. And unfortunately, the majority of these fines were reduced, some of them eliminated entirely, and the staff time and the legal fees, would you say, Steve, probably made it a net loss for the city even, or break even maybe?
Break even at best.
Yeah, at best. Break even.
I think the goal was deterrence, and that was sort of their goal.
Yeah.
It
So we'll
wasn't
have to
money-making. It
wait.
wasn't a money-making thing, it was a,
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see this year if it did provide a deterrent and get that information. But at the moment, LEAC was not interested in pursuing that avenue due to the time and the expense. I did ask Captain Timmons during our meeting for a dedicated fireworks reporting line, and he agreed to look into that. We did that 2 years ago, and it was very effective for residents. They felt that they had an easier time getting through to someone at dispatch and reporting fireworks violations. And we also discussed the schedule for future meetings and settled on the third Wednesday of the month at the beginning of every quarter. So that's when we will hold those. So that is my report.
Thank you for that. With the permission of the council, I would like Alyssa retire from tonight if she would like to. I have asked her to put a picture for OC sanitation. Would you mind if I just report that so that way she can show the picture, and if she chooses to go home and rest, she can.
she's going to go home. Yeah, I'm going to send her home.
Okay, so if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna do the OC-SAN report right now. Very quick, let's just have Alyssa pull up the picture. So this is our only Villa Park resident, Michael Rice, had completed Wastewater 101. So he was there receiving his certificate and with a photo. So in the future, when when OC-SAN gonna put out the Wastewater 101, I will definitely promote it more, and hopefully we would have other residents to take time off to understand what OC-SAN does and also how what they do. I know in the past, Council Member McBride also completed that. I don't know why we did not take a photo, so that's why I didn't mention anything, but he did complete it. So hopefully in the future we will have more residents, including the council. It is, from what I remember, it is for Thursday. I believe it is 1 or 2 hours. 2 hours. 2 hours.
It's not an insignificant investment of time, but you've learned a lot.
Okay, so that's the photo. Thank you so much, Alyssa.
Just a point, Michael Rice is also a member of the Investment Advisory Committee, an active member. So just to his credit, he's doing a lot of things for Villa Park, so that's a really good thing.
Thank you for that. I did not know that. Thank you, Michael Rice, in case you're watching. Thank you so much. I would like to also make report on the OC-SAN. They are going to do a rate study in Proposition 218. OC-SAN is currently conducting a rate study to establish the next 5 years rate schedule. A Proposition 218 notice will be issued earlier than original plan due to the service area changes and the additional of new customers through agreements with Irvine Range Water District. The updated rate structure is anticipated for fiscal year 2028 to 2029, while the adopted rates for fiscal year 2027 to 28 remain in effect. I would imagine that's what residents would like to know for future rate. And the other thing I would imagine the Villa Park residents would be affected is the Taft construction. It is moving forward, now is going into Sacramento Avenue or Street, right by Home Depot. So they are continuing doing that, and they will continue doing so in May, and I believe over the summer they will start to do the repayment on Taft on the west side of Tustin. So that's all I have for the OC-SAN. That is more related to Villa Park residents. So next person up would be Villa Park Community Service.
Real quick, Jordan, just so the residents know, there will be no access to Sacramento Avenue from Taft. They're going to block off that whole end of the street. You have to enter from Meats to get to that area. It's not Villa Park, however, it will be an access issue if you were visiting a friend or something.
Okay, thank you for that. The next person up, Villa Park Community Service Foundation.
Okay, we had 2 board meetings and a 250th meeting between last council meeting and this. If we can, I hit with just a couple big takeaways? All right. Oh, okay. The biggest upcoming event is the 5K run on May 16th. They have lots of people registered to run, but we need lots more. There'll also be a health fair down here involved with that 5K. It's also a membership join-up time. Everyone should have received a mailer in their mailbox of how to join the foundation. And just to reiterate, the city, while it does provide some subsidy of the police services and of staff time, overwhelmingly, the big events that go on in Villa Park that we all know and love, Halloween Fest, Santa on the Fire Engine, Marine Thanksgiving, so on and so forth, is all driven by donations to the foundation and is driven by the volunteer time that people put in. So join the foundation, please, please, please. And then I want to thank Nicole Jones and her family for the awesome flags that you're starting to see on the street signs around Villa Park. That was Nicole's brilliant idea, and I know she had Mark Kulai kind of give her a little help on the how it works, and her sons are putting them up there, and they look great. Oh, you're doing it?
Some credit.
How do you do that in heels? I do. They look fantastic. If anything, you're a victim of your own success because everybody wants one. And then also along that same line, Ed Carter, Eric Handorf, Craig Beinlich, and myself started the bunting in here and next door and outside. And we learned that in Rockwell's water tower that thumbtacks do not hold it in down below. It was a windy day on Saturday and it blew it off. Anyway, we're doing our best. And then on May 9th, the Boy Scout troop, 850, along with the Rotary of Villa Park, are going to be putting out bunting, more bunting than you've ever seen in your entire life, because it's up to my neck in my office at work, along the split rail fence along Lemon and Santiago. So 2 of you will have lots of decor coming your way. Would you please add to, what did I miss, Councilwoman?
Well, I was just going to give the report from the last meeting.
Please.
Because I was the person in attendance. So from the last meeting, the conversation did center around the 2 large events that Councilman Freckleton just mentioned. But I would just like to emphasize, please, please, please look at the route that was published in the feeder last week. We do really want to get the word out because some streets will be completely closed to vehicles from about 7:30 a.m. to approximately 9:30 a.m. So if you do need to get out during that time, please plan to park your vehicle outside the area because you will not be able to get out during that time. I also wanted to mention, in addition to the health and wellness fair that Mayor Pro Tem Freckleton mentioned, that there will also be a Red Cross blood drive here in City Hall from 9:15 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then for the USA 250, we are victims of our own success for the flags, and I would just like to say that some residents have requested that we put them on their street signs, but there's a stop sign or there's a speed limit sign or something on that sign, and we're not able to put flags on those. And so that's why you will see them in some locations and maybe not others, and there might be a great intersection that we would love to paper with flags, but there's where the bunting comes in, and everyone's tired of hearing Robert say the word bunting, but we are definitely going to be putting that around the city as well. And so starting May 9th is when you will really start to see the unveiling of all of this great celebration of our country and all of the great USA 250 that we have going on. And as part of that, we have the July 4th extravaganza that will be going on July 4th. So please plan your morning and early afternoon event, beginning with our traditional parade, then ending up at Sarah Villa Middle School, where we will have closed off the street between Mark Circle and Dodson Way, which is the two streets right between the catwalk. And we will have food trucks, we'll have booths for our community groups and young entrepreneurs. We'll have a dunk tank for Mayor Wu and Mayor Pro Tem Freckleton, carnival games, and a band playing all-American classics. So, and the festivities will be ending promptly at 2 p.m. so that everyone can get to their traditional 4th of July festivities. So that's all I have to report from the foundation side.
All right. Next person up, OUSD.
Oh, that's also me. So we met yesterday, which is the first time we have met since Dr. Rachel Menares became superintendent. So therefore, most of the meeting was spent reviewing history for the committee. We do also have an interim superintendent of business services. So it was kind of getting them up to speed on what the city schools committee has accomplished over the years and what the priorities are going forward. The district has heard concerns from multiple stakeholders regarding e-bikes, and they did praise the city of Villa Park for being proactive with both our e-bike ordinance and our student-based education permit program at Villa Park High School. And I know Mayor Wu has brought the same program to Canyon High School as well. So OUSD is not only looking to deploy the program district-wide, but maybe achieving some consistency too across the district. So we discussed safe routes to school and school traffic, which are always concerns for our students and residents here in Villa Park. I also communicated the need for a formalized program for our Villa Park resident use of the Villa Park High School tennis courts. I started working on getting our residents access in 2022, but really didn't make any progress until we got our new school board members in 2024. So, however, since then, we've still been on this pilot program due to staff turnover at OUSD. So now we are going to move forward on that and look at making it a more permanent program for Villa Park residents. So I also mentioned that our community was promised access to the track at Villa Park High School years ago, which never happened. And so joint use of facilities became a big topic at the meeting. And so OUSD is going to be taking a look at their overall plan, and we'll be discussing it in more detail at the next meeting. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up, Bridges at Kramer Place Advisory.
Thank you. We met last Wednesday on April 22nd, and there's a update to the provider operations. Originally, Bridges at Kramer Place, it was Mercy House was the service provider, and so Mercy House will no longer be serving as the operator for the facility. The county has selected PATH, which is People Assisting the Homeless, as the new provider moving forward. Nothing happened or went wrong. It's just there was, contracts that go out or RFPs that go out, and PATH was already servicing one of the other county-run shelters called Yale Navigation Center, and so they ended up getting the contract for both Bridges and Yale. So PATH is a long-standing nonprofit founded in 1984, operates homelessness services across California. They run shelters, interim housing, outreach programs, and supportive services in multiple counties, including here in Orange County. Their model is rooted in housing first principles, with a strong focus on case management, mental health support, and employment assistance, and long-term housing stability. PATH already works within the regional system of care, so they come in with existing partnerships and familiarity with local expectations, and it's such a small community, so the operators at Mercy House and PATH, they know each other and frequently work together anyway, so there's no bad blood. As PATH steps in, our priority as an advisory body was ensuring a smooth transition, both operationally and for the residents who rely on consistent, stable services. So the transition timeline is now through June 30th. Some of the staff from PATH came to our last meeting, introduced themselves. We were able to ask them questions. We have been told that there will be no changes to the service mode, meaning the requirements that were established to be part of Bridges in the first place. That was created in the partnership with the residents and businesses around where Bridges is located. For instance, it's not a free walk-in, walk-out. There's no drugs on site. There's other stipulations, so none of that is changing. PATH plans to maintain continuity of care, and our focus as an advisory body remains the same, supporting a safe, effective, and dignified environment for everyone who is served at Bridges. And the main difference that we should see, Yale, operated by PATH, is designed as a large-scale, high-capacity navigation center, functions as a regional intake point with robust case management, triage, and connections to housing pathways, and serves individuals with higher acuity or those coming directly from street outreach, whereas Bridges was smaller, more stabilization-focused, and kind of emphasizes like a transitional shelter. So we will see. Everyone seems to be very positive, and like I said, the communication and the camaraderie between the two service providers is extremely solid and strong, and so I think everyone is looking as this is a way to address the homelessness issue in a much more succinct way. And that's it.
Thank you. Next up, OCFA.
Okay, Orange County Fire Authority, we had 2 board meetings between the last council meeting and now that I attended both. I also met with our new deputy chief, Ryan Bishop, in preparation for the agenda for the operations committee that I chair that gets together next week. He's my main staff person for that. And no huge changes from last meeting other than Engine 23's upgrade is still on track to happen in November. I'm going to go way into the weeds. There's only 3 fire engine companies left in the United States. There used to be something like 10 or 12 or 15. Nobody gets their stuff on time. OCFA tends to pay promptly and upfront and do deposits, so we are getting ours this summer, and so our station will be enjoying by November-ish a upgraded engine, which will be nice because the one they have now is from 2007, back when I was still working there, and it's a dog, quite frankly. Station 23, which my predecessor, Vince Rossini, got on the books for a remodel, has now been upgraded to a rebuild and to be the backup ECC, but that's hit roadblocks because they need to put a tower antenna up to make that a backup emergency communication center, and they're not sure they can get the permits to do it, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in addition, the budget is being done now for next 2 years and the 5-year forecast, and all 4 labor groups' contract is up in 27. The biggest of which is the firefighters union, and it's already started, and I'm getting worried about whether our capital improvement budget's going to be there for the next 3 years, but we'll see. Speaking of the firefighters union, they put on March 28th a fire ops where they invited all the electeds as well as media to come put on the full gear and do the job, kind of, at the headquarters. We raised ladders. We actually grabbed hose, went into buildings with simulated fire. I mean, actual fire, but it's all propane powered. But it's overwhelming. Climb one of the ladder trucks, so on and so forth, and then use the Hearst tools, the jaws of life, to open up a car. We destroyed 3 cars. And it was a lot of fun. It was great. And it served the purpose well of reminding me and everyone knowing how hard it really is. I mean, those tools are so heavy, and the turnouts are so hot, and the flash hood you wear is so warm, and out in the sun, it's miserable. It's a really, really hard job, so I was impressed. I've forgotten more in 16 years than I remembered from the 8.5 years I used to do it, but I tried to show off anyway, and I was sore for 5 days afterwards, so that was a dumb mistake. That's my report.
Thank you. Next up, Orange County Library Advisory Board.
Thank you. So I am now on the executive board for the Orange County Public Libraries Advisory Board, and so we had an executive board meeting on April 23rd, Our county librarian, Julie Quillman, will be retiring in the next couple of months, and the board wished her well and thanked her for her service to the county. We reviewed the OC Public Library's 2026-2027 financial information and budget, which included an overview of their capital improvement plan. And the plan right now is to refresh libraries every 8 to 10 years in some way, just to make sure that they continue to be warm, welcoming spaces for our communities. And we also reviewed some OCPL programs, such as their One County, One Book program, where they encourage everyone in Orange County to read the same book. So this year's selection is James by Percival Everett, a New York Times bestseller, a National Book Award winner, and Pulitzer Prize winner. If you are interested, there will be an author event this Thursday, May 7th at 6:30 p.m. at the Laguna Hills Community Center. No registration is required, and complimentary books will be available while supplies last. Early arrival is suggested, and as everything with the library, it is free. So please visit their website at ocpl.org for details. And that is my report.
Thank you. Next up, Friends of Villa Park Library.
I had a conflict and was unable to meet the meeting, but I'll update with Bill Baker on Thursday.
Thank you for that. Next up, OC Mosquito and Vector Control District.
So I attended the board meeting on April 16th and also the meeting of the public information officers the previous week to review the recent publicity campaign for the Mosquito Awareness Week that many of you may have heard about on the local news channels. It was informative to watch the aerial application drone and learn more about the abatement methods used in larger areas of breeding, like the Newport Back Bay and other wetlands. It's important to point out that this equipment is not used to spray chemical poisons, but sprays a biological larvicide called BTI, which is a naturally occurring soil bacteria that affects the larvae of mosquitoes and their digestive systems, along with S-methoprene, which sounds chemically, but it's actually a hormone that disrupts mosquito development. So that's what they call adulticides, and that's cured up my questions about, is it chemical spraying when we see some of this going on, and it's actually very biologically safe. So when you call in a report to the OCMVCD, this is most likely what they're going to administer in your storm drains, catch basins, and stagnant pools and ponds. Large enough standing ponds can also get treatments of mosquito fish that eat larvae. You can get more information about these and other abatement methods at www.mosquitossuck.org. So it's a great place for information, and I encourage people to actually report issues if they notice accumulations of mosquitoes or other vectors. Thank you.
Next up, OC Older Adults Advisory Commission.
Thank you. So the general meeting was April 10th, and we were briefed on the area plan update, which is the requirement by all AAA area agencies on aging, along with being updated that both the older adults resource guide and the caregiver guide, they're basically ready to launch, but there's just some translation issues with some of the translation. So that should be coming online any day. We'll make sure that it goes in the feeder. It's going to be a great guide to help if you're a caregiver or if you're an older adult, or actually both. April 24th, we had the executive meeting, and we had a very interesting, great speaker who came from the county, and she came and spoke from the Office of the Public Guardian, and she talked about conservatorships. And so there's two types. One that you don't really have much control over, meaning if it happens, and that's called LPS, which stands for, and I have to look this up, Lanterman Petrus Short. It's for individuals who are gravely disabled due to serious mental illness or severe substance use disorder. And so the Office of the Public Guardian will do everything in their power to not make it easy to remove someone's rights, but that's what a conservatorship does. That county office then acts as your caregiver and your power of attorney. But the other one that was more applicable to older adults is the probate. And so probate conservatorship is used when an adult cannot care for themselves or manage their finances due to conditions such as dementia, traumatic brain injury, or other cognitive impairments. And that can cover the person, the estate, or both. And it's usually they don't have anyone else. They don't have any family. So she went over kind of the process for both of those. And really the main takeaway when we asked, how does one prevent, for the probate conservatorship, how does one prevent getting put in that situation? And it's really about making sure all your affairs are in order, get your trusts if you have one, get your power of attorney, all that, get that in order, because that will definitely help make sure to prevent that from happening. And then we also, or I went, so we have as I've mentioned in the past, we've been trying to work with different public entities, whether it's Orange County Mosquito Vector Control or SoCal Gas, Southern California Edison, and most recently the sheriffs, in working with them in a partnership and collaboration to getting the message out there about the Office on Aging and all the different services that they provide. And we redid the pamphlet. And so one of my last goals was to meet with the sheriff. So Assistant Sheriff Puckett was very kind to meet with me in their super secret building, which was really cool. And so then I was able to meet with Sergeant White, who is the field training officer, and got to spend some time with him, also in one of those super secret buildings, and got to see all the cool stuff. And he took a whole bunch of our pamphlets, and this is something that every Thursday when they have their training, giving to some of their resource officers and their men and women that are on the street. And so that way when they, because there's a difference, right? When you get called out as a call, right? So there's a call, a need. Obviously, they go and they service and they have their mandatory reporters, et cetera. But then what about just those instances where maybe there wasn't a call, but they noticed something? And that was the area that we were trying to increase awareness. And so the sheriff, being who they are, it's wonderful people, agreed that they would try this. So there's kind of a pilot program going on, I guess you could say, where deputies will have these pamphlets in their cars. And if they see older adults, obviously, if there's a need, it's a whole different response. But this is just something where, you're out and about and you talk to people and realize that maybe they could use some assistance or some help. So that was a goal that the office or the Orange County Older Adults Advisory Committee had. And so we're really looking forward to seeing how that pans out. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Now we will hear individual council members' information items or announcements, starting with Councilmember McBride.
Okay, since it's getting late, I'm going to race through this. Here we go. On March 26, I met with Jerry Vilander, Robbie Pitts, and Brad Reese of the Serrano Water District to discuss the details of proposed rate increases to fund capital improvements over the next 5 years that were proposed during the recent budgeting process. It was, again, informative, and you'll be hearing more about that, and they're going to have another meeting regarding those potential increases. I spoke at the Yorba Linda Scout Troop about local government and the roles of local elected officials. It was a great group, and I was impressed to see that the Scouts now have more females attending than they do males. So that was interesting. I fabricated butcher block countertops and backsplashes and helped install the new kitchen cabinets, sink, and countertops at the Friendly Center in Orange, along with other Rotary members. The Friendly Center assists low-income families with educational after-school programs to foster personal achievement for disadvantaged youths. On the 16th, I attended the OC Sheriff's Medal of Valor ceremony with my fellow council to honor medal winners who put their lives on the line to save citizens' lives and respond to emergency situations. On the 20th, I spoke to third grade classes at Serrano Elementary with Mayor Wu and Mayor Pro Tem Frackleton on same aspects of city. They constructed model cities and learned about civic government, so that was, again, interesting and a lot of fun. We found out how clever our mayor is because he not only spoke, but he brought candy with him and was giving away prizes for it. Made Council Mayor Pro Tem Frackleton and myself jealous that we weren't as clever. Then I'll be participating in the Orange County Wildlife and Emergency Communications webinar coming up on the 30th. And then next week, I'll be attending the SCAG regional conference. And so I have two goals at that one. One is to network with the members of the Community Economic and Human Development Committee to try to get a committee assignment for that next year. And that's the ones that determine the regional housing needs assessment that we discussed, the RENA. And also, I started networking with some other smaller cities to try to get a small city caucus of cities that have populations below 15,000. So I'm looking forward to that, and that's next Thursday and Friday.
Thank you for that. Next up, that's Councilmember Miles. Right?
Thank you. So attended a few of the events that Councilman McBride mentioned. In addition, on the 17th, was honored to attend the fourth annual Women in Leadership. That was a room filled with women, and there was just a couple men that I think really didn't want to be there, but they had to. In conjunction with the Orange County Status of Women and Girls annual report that my commission put out, was able to participate in the ACCOC Child Care Landscape webinar, as it's very instrumental into what's going to be our report for next year. And then, of course, our first budget workshop here, that was on the 13th, some of the other things that were mentioned. And then looking forward to May 14th is going to be that Serrano Water seminar workshop to learn about some of those rate increases that Councilman McBride discussed, and that's at Serrano District Office, I think at 5 p.m. on May 14th. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Jones.
Thank you. So I was happy to receive an updated grid hardening report from Southern California Edison that shows completed projects along like the Smith Basin, along Loma, and some other nearby areas. They're also proposing some additional hardening along Santiago Canyon as well. And we will hopefully be having a meeting with Edison in May, so we will have more information to pass along after that meeting. I attended the Orange Unified School District Visual and Performing Arts Showcase put on by the Orange Unified Public Schools Foundation at Chapman University. The showcase gathers young musicians and dancers from all over the district to perform in a professional theater and includes an all-district band and orchestra. So it is so amazing to see all the young talent we have in our community. I was very happy to attend Senator Choi's Woman of Distinction Award, where we presented, he presented an award to our very own Pam Dunn. And it was great to see that so many of our community members showed up to support Pam. So that was wonderful. I also went to Serrano, and City Manager Franks and I presented to one of their third grade classrooms, and they just had endless questions. I attended the Villa Park High School Pancake Breakfast. Thank you to the Villa Park High School PFSO, Villa Park Rotary, and the Villa Park Women's League for coming together to make another fantastic event. Also attended the first budget meeting of the year, so thank you to city staff and especially Lee for the great presentation. I also went with City Manager Steve Franks to speak to an American government class at Cal State Fullerton about local government. The class was extremely engaged, and we ended up with far more questions than we had time. And so it was really wonderful to see so many young people interested in government and how they can get involved. And also attended the Medal of Valor ceremony, and it's always such a moving event as we see just, firsthand on the screen what the brave men and women of the Orange County Sheriff's Department do for us each and every day. So we really appreciate them. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mayor Pro Tem Fracotin.
All right. In addition to everything else we've talked about already, April 11th, I also went to Villa Park High School Pancake Breakfast and got to make some pancakes. And once again, really marvel at the fact that the high school has never looked better in my lifetime. I mean, it just looks fantastic. And then on April 16th, I actually got to go inside the new science building and the other new building with Rotary. We had our breakfast meeting there, and Dennis McHewson, the principal, gave us a tour. And I can't believe the technology they have in there. They have an amazing medical lab in that science building, and I helped make phone calls for the bond, and I was really conflicted at the time about it because I hate adding money to our property tax. But boy, it paid off. It was way better than I ever expected, and very impressive. And the list of accomplishments of the students and how many have gone on to become physician assistants, physicians, nurse assistants, and so forth is impressive. April 16th, Sheriff's Medal of Valor ceremony, which was terrific, only to be brought down a bit because as soon as it was over is when Mark Kulai called me to let me know that Jill had passed, and she will be missed. And on May 11th, there'll be a celebration of life for Jill Kulai at the Villa, and reach out to Erica Mark if you haven't received an invite and would like to go celebrate. We could spend an hour talking about how much that woman did for Villa Park between the Women's League, the foundation, the cable TV board, you name it, the PFSO, so on and so on and so forth. But proud to have known her for 52 years, and she will be missed. April 20th was totally upstaged by Mayor Wu at Serrano's third grade classes, along with McBride. McBride and I thought we were doing a great job, and then he comes in with his bag of candy, and forget it. We were done. Well done. April 25th, another, and thank you, Mayor, for doing the moment of silence at the beginning of the meeting for those 4 wonderful women who we've lost. And thank you, Councilwoman Jones, for on April 25th hosting Julia's celebration. And that was very moving as well. And you know, Halloween Fest certainly wouldn't exist without her, and she will be missed. Finally, this morning, I was on Southern California Edison's Zoom regarding the infamous PSPS, and I'm so happy with Councilwoman Jones' update on that. And the nice thing is we're not the only ones who are screaming and yelling. Everybody's screaming and yelling, and I think they definitely are getting the message. And when we meet with them in May, I'm hoping that we'll have some good news that we're not going to have 4 days of blackouts again in Villa Park, hopefully. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right. I'll keep it super short. Just going to report we are moving forward with Villa Park time capsule. In 2 weeks, we will have our first meeting as a committee, and to hopefully create a guideline, what we will put into the capsule. And in that meeting, we will decide what kind of capsule we will actually purchase, and we will know the actual volume of the dimension that we can put stuff in there. I don't want to go into all other events that all the fellow council members have mentioned, so that's all I have. Now we will adjourn until the next regular city council meeting on May 19th, 2026 at 6:30. Thank you for participating in this long meeting, and have a wonderful evening and stay safe. Thank you.